Good morning. It is 5 o'clock, and I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. We'll have a stormy Tuesday. Stefano DiPietro telling us the areas that'll get the most severe weather are above the I-40 line.
Right now, the main threat will be heavier rainfall, high wind gusts. Some of the strongest thunderstorms could have some good hail with them as well. The tornado threat, extremely low, not necessarily zero, but we are going to find plenty of dry time through the day itself.
So the storms will move in around dinner time, and keep it here for all the latest on these storms throughout the day. A man has been arrested after he allegedly chased a couple who had been walking through Bicentennial Capitol Mall State Park on Saturday. Court documents say that at first, the 38-year-old Thomas Milam was playing a guitar, but then things turned ugly.
According to arrest documents, the woman had an interaction with the suspect, who then began chasing her and her boyfriend. The male victim says Milan stated, quote, "You better run, I'm going to cut your throat." Now, he reports that Milan dragged the knife along a brick wall, causing it to spark.
That's News 2's Peyton Kennedy there. Officers caught up with Milam, arrested him. His bond is set at $85,000. ICE agents have arrested an illegal immigrant from Uzbekistan who was wanted in his own country for having ties to a terrorist group. Fox News' Madeline Rivera says Akror Bazorov was picked up earlier this month while driving an 18-wheeler in Kansas.
2023, he was arrested by Border Patrol and then released despite an arrest warrant issued for him in his native country of Uzbekistan. Authorities there had issued one for him in 2022, accusing him of being a member of a terrorist organization, calling for jihad online, and recruiting others to join the movement.
Now, a different twist on this one. He was issued his CDL in Pennsylvania and had been granted authorization to work in the U.S. in January of 2024 by the Biden administration. Market numbers brought to you by Beacon Capital Management, online at beaconcm.com.
Stocks face a rough start to the week as concerns over artificial intelligence valuations plague investors. The Dow dropped more than 550 points, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq pulled back by nearly 200 points, with chipmaker Nvidia dropping about 3% ahead of their third quarter earnings, which are expected Wednesday. Pharma company Novo Nordisk announced the monthly cost for their popular GLP-1 weight loss drugs, Wegovy and Ozempic, will drop by 30% for people paying out of pocket. Both drugs will be offered at $349 a month, down from $499 at more than 70,000 retailers, including Walmart and Costco. Carmaker Ford and online giant Amazon have unveiled a new deal that will allow customers to order a certified pre-owned car or truck. Some steps, though, like financing and early paperwork and scheduling a pickup time, can be done online. Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
A look at stock futures. The Dow futures are down 144. NASDAQ futures, they're minus 66, and the S&P futures are down 16 points. That comes after Home Depot said it's cutting its earnings outlook. The home improvement chain demand falls short of expectations. We've got traffic and weather coming up next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News. Wow, it is such a quiet morning. We just have a minor delay on 40 heading east. It's around the airport area, but otherwise 24, 65, 40, they all look good so far. Traffic every 10 minutes, every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Well, good morning to you, everyone. It is 6 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on this early Tuesday morning. No, I'm not Dan Mandis.
Yeah, you don't sound like him.
I don't sound at all like Dan Mandis. You have this thing happen every once in a while when you're in broadcasting, and the phone rings at an ungodly hour of the night. In this particular case, it was about 12:50 this morning. And it was, right, it's Dan. I'm sick. Can you cover for me? So, at that point, you look over and you say, well, I got 2 more hours to sleep. I got to get up.
I bet you didn't go back to sleep, though, did you?
No, I didn't.
I knew it.
Yeah, I tossed and turned, and you know how that stuff goes.
Yeah.
But one way or the other, I'm in this morning, and I'm prepped it to the best of my ability, and we will give you hopefully 4 hours of quality radio in Dan's absence, and we'll see if he's feeling better tomorrow. But one way or the other, we'll get it covered for you. A lot of going on today. That I think is going to be really interesting. This is going to be a day where you're going to hear an awful lot about Epstein files and do they or do they not relate to Donald Trump? It's going to come unraveled because the House is going to actually vote today, and it looks like the House is poised. The Republican-controlled House is poised to order the DOJ to release all Epstein files. Now, I don't know how you'd go about this because it seems to me how do you solve that problem? They've already released some 65,000 pages. There are grand jury testimony within all this that you're not supposed to ever release grand jury testimony. That's supposed to be sacred. What happens in the grand jury room is supposed to stay in the grand jury room, and apparently they're asking that all the documents be released, including those. Look, I don't think it's going to be harmful to Donald Trump. And what he has said is, he said, you know what, I'm just ready to go ahead and get this out there. I'm tired of messing with it. I want to move on, and to do that, if we go ahead and release these documents, what you're going to have is a situation where you have a deal where you have a situation where you release the documents and there's maybe one little thing in there that has Trump's name in it. But Trump, all of the evidence seemed to suggest Trump did nothing wrong. Did he know Jeffrey Epstein? Yes. Did that relationship end? Yes, it ended in about 2007. There was some kind of disagreement between them. It had something to do with an incident that occurred at Mar-a-Lago, as my understanding. And then but there was a falling out. And I've read emails written by Epstein himself. And this is the ones that just got leaked the other day. And even in that, he says, he didn't ever get a massage. He never was in there with the girls. He was never doing anything wrong. So, why are the Democrats making noise about this? Well, I'll tell you why they are, because what's going on, really, the truth of this matter is the Democrats, have found that there's a great deal of distrust in America about whether or not the government is coming clean on the Epstein files. And is the government coming clean? Well, that's the big question. And so the Democrats know that, it looks bad if they don't release them. because it would they believe makes the case that, well, Trump did something and he's involved with Epstein and it will all come out. But apparently the documents do not show that. That's my understanding. We'll see as they come out today. But it is interesting. He says that the main reason he doesn't want them released is he believes it detracts from what Republicans have been doing with regard to the economy and the other good things that happen. He says Democrats just trying to knock us off message, and that's why I didn't want to release them. But he says, now go ahead and release it. Show them to the Senate. I don't care. I got nothing to hide. So the House of Representatives will take that action a little bit later today. Here's from the Washington Times. The long-standing political controversy over the Epstein files has shifted from conspiracy theories about the Clintons to unsubstantiated accusations that President Trump participated in Epstein's sex trafficking and is concealing evidence. The House plans to vote Tuesday, today, on legislation to force the release of the files with the president's support. Trump has been combating Democrat claims that he purposely was hiding the Epstein files to cover up wrongdoing. Representative Robert Garcia, the top Democrat on the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee, claimed Trump is panicked and desperate over their investigation into his relationship with Epstein. Trump dismissed these accusations as a Democrat hoax perpetrated by radical left lunatics and urged House Republicans to vote for releasing all files, promising to sign the measure into law. And as this story points out, and as I said, it is Republicans have already published some 65,000 pages obtained through subpoenas from the Justice Department and Epstein's estate, posting them in online batches. This is part of Trump's point, and I think it's the strongest argument that he has. We've already put out 65,000 pages of documents, and people say it's not enough. Trump made the comparison to the JFK files. We release all these files. The Martin Luther King assassination files. We release all the files, and still people say, well, there's more. There's more. You don't have it all. And his point is, well, when is enough enough? I don't know how some of this stuff comes out. I really don't. I don't see how in the world you get it all out there. With this grand jury testimony stuff, I don't know how they can get that information into the public domain. I think you got a problem there, and I think that may come up in lawsuits, etc. But one way or the other, I don't think this hurts Donald Trump. If it does, it would be quite surprising based on, how much information has already come out, and doesn't look like there's anything there for Trump. A lot of Democrats. Larry Summers has got some splaining to do. House poised to pass a bill to force the release of the Epstein files in a bipartisan vote. That was the tack that NBC News took on it this morning. The vote comes after Trump reversed course and encouraged House Republicans to support the measure he had previously opposed. He did oppose it, but his argument was it's only going to be an effort by the Democrats to knock us off the beam, to get us off target. Look, if there's something there, then let it fall out. I mean, let the chips fall where they may. Let the explanations be heard. But so far, no, 65,000 pages and nothing. The Democrats have gone through those 65 pages looking for everything. And what they know is they looked at 65,000 pages and they've got the problem. Democrats, they will do the thing they accuse everybody else of doing. So there you go. What to know before the House votes on the Epstein files. We'll get to that in just a moment. Right now, a quick stop to see what's going on with traffic and weather.
Well, the roads look good so far this morning. I see no delays really on 24 so far heading in. No delays on 40. That minor delay heading eastbound around the airport area has now been taken away. And then we don't have any delays as well on 65 heading in from the north. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Joan Jones. Have you ever gotten one of those 12:50 a.m. phone calls before?
I'm sure I have. Long career, but I don't remember. Thankfully. You forget the ones you don't like, right?
That's right. Well, anyway, that's the way it goes.
Thank you for coming in, Brian. It would have been an awfully lonely show without you.
Yeah, well, I'm just glad I had my ringer on. Most of the times I turn things down at night, so it's not dinging and making noise over there next on the side of my bed. But for some reason I had left the ringer on. And it came through loud and clear, 12:50 a.m. I'm sure Dan will be fine. I did talk to him briefly. I don't remember much of the conversation, but I did talk to him briefly. But he'll be in hopefully tomorrow. Yeah. All right, look here real quick. I want to talk about what's going to happen. Here's the way Axios has poised this. They're not particularly big fans of Trump. The House seems poised to vote on a bill this week that would force the full release of the Epstein files. And then they go on to say, look, at least they are honest in reporting this. There are no credible allegations of wrongdoing by Trump in the Epstein case. Mike Johnson said last week the House is expected to vote this week, and I think it's going to happen today. Trump called for House Republicans to go ahead and vote in favor of this because we have nothing to hide. And it's time to move on from this Democrat hoax. And on Monday, he doubled down saying that if that bill came to his desk, he would sign it and let the Senate take a look at it, he says. Not the things you would hear from a man who's got something to fear. I mean, it wouldn't, if you are Donald Trump and you didn't, you ended your relationship, you weren't involved in any of that hinky stuff that was going on with Epstein on the plane and on the island, and you know it. You know what you did. So if you didn't do anything, you can rest easy. Let the things come out. Yeah, yes, they will point out that they had a relationship, a I don't know if you want to call it a friendship, an acquaintanceship back in the day. But there is nothing that suggests that Trump has done anything wrong. Now, somebody who definitely has some problems with this regard is Larry Summers, former Treasury Secretary under Bill Clinton, former president of Harvard University, stepping back now from public life after his apparent conversations with Jeffrey Epstein were released this week by the House Oversight Committee. I'm deeply ashamed of my actions and recognize the pain they have caused. I take full responsibility for my misguided decisions to continue communicating with Mr. Epstein. He's currently a member of Harvard's faculty, according to the Hartford Crimson. While continuing to fulfill my teaching obligations, I will be stepping back from public commitments as one part of my broader effort to rebuild trust and repair relationships with the people closest to me. He flew at least 4 times on Epstein's aircraft, according to flight records, maintained a relationship with Epstein for many years, particularly during Summers' term as president of Harvard from 2001 to 2006. All of the gifts were received prior to Epstein's guilty plea in Florida. For decades, Larry Summers has demonstrated his attraction to serving the wealthy and well-connected, but his willingness to cozy up to a convicted sex offender demonstrates monumentally bad judgment, said Senator Elizabeth Warren, Democrat of Massachusetts. So, no Epstein survivor has alleged wrongdoing by Summers, and there's no public record to suggest Summers was involved in any of Epstein's crimes. However, the newly released emails suggest a closer bond between the two men than had previously been reported. I mean, once you know that what the guy is, and he's been hit pretty hard by the Department of Justice back in the day, and you continue to have that relationship, it raises real questions about your judgment. Here is from Fox News version of the story. Oversight Committee Republicans are accusing their Democrat counterparts of using the House's ongoing investigation into Jeffrey Epstein to attack President Donald Trump rather than Donald Trump rather than find closures for the late pedophile's victim. Fox News Digital obtained a 10-page internal memo written by GOP committee staff for lawmakers on the panel that argued Democrats intentionally misrepresented information obtained by Republicans to create a narrative that was not there. Well, we've seen this before, haven't we? I mean, all of the stuff that they alleged about Trump, all of the allegations, all of the investigations, one by one, they fell by the wayside because there was never any there. Is this just another one of those cases where the Democrats are making noise? And at the end of the day, you know, they rile up a bunch of people, but do they really prove anything that was done improperly by Donald Trump? I don't think that's going to be the case. If history is our guide, it would seem to me that we are probably not going to hear a lot more once these documents come out. And if it's there, and we'll find out about it. But I don't think it's there. I don't think the Democrats have it. If they can't find something in 65,000 pages, then I don't think there's anything there. And we'll see what happens. And remember, here's the other thing. If you get those grand jury files are not testimony in a court of law. And testimony that happens in a grand jury setting is not the final say. Allegations can be leveled by anyone, but proving them is what happens in a court of law. And nothing has ever reached that point with the Epstein case and Donald Trump. So we'll watch this today. I mean, it's going to be fascinating to see all of the hyperbole and all of the attacks that the Democrats are going to throw out. But you know what? I love the fact that Trump basically said, put up or shut up. And they'll try to twist any mention at all of Trump from back in the day into something bigger. But, I mean, nobody has come forward to say yet that Donald Trump did anything improper when he was with Jeffrey Epstein. 23 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk.
And coming up, we've got some storms arriving around here later on today. We've got the latest from Stefano coming up at 5:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
27 minutes past the hour. Joan Jones will be with us with news at the bottom of the hour. Well, let's listen to a little bit of what Trump had to say about this whole Epstein's thing yesterday. He was asked about it in great detail in the Oval Office.
I just want to be super clear on your position. Do you want to see that pass the Senate? Would you sign that bill if it gets to your desk?
I do want to. Here's what I want. We have nothing to do with Epstein. The Democrats do. All of his friends were Democrats. You look at this Reid Hoffman, you look at Larry Summers, Bill Clinton, they went to his island all the time, and many others. They're all Democrats. All I want for people to recognize the great job that I've done on pricing, on affordability, because we brought prices way down, but they're going way lower, on energy, on ending 8 wars and another one coming pretty soon, I believe. We've done a great job. And I hate to see that deflect from the great job we've done. So I'm all for it. You know, we've already given 50,000 pages. You do know that. Unfortunately, like with the Kennedy situation, with the Martin Luther King situation, not to put Jeffrey Epstein in the same category, but no matter what we give, it's never enough. You know, with Kennedy, we gave everything, and it wasn't enough. With Martin Luther King, we gave everything, and it's never enough. We've already given, I believe the number is 50,000 pages. 50,000 pages. And it's just a Russia hoax as it pertains to the Republicans. Now, I believe that many of the people some of the people that we mentioned are being looked at very seriously for their relationship to Jeffrey Epstein. But they were with him all the time. I wasn't at all. And we'll see what happens. What I just don't want Epstein to do is detract from the great success of the Republican Party.
Well, there you have a good sense of what's on his mind and why he is. If there's been any foot dragging, that's his argument as to why there was foot dragging, because he knows that it's just going to deflect, and the Democrats are going to make hay, and they're going to make a lot of noise. But where's the there? Put up or shut up, Democrats. Let's see what you got. I don't think you're going to find much. 30 minutes now past the hour. Time for the news with Joan Jones.
It's back and bigger than
Hello,
ever.
it
It's
is
our
now
Black Friday
5:30.
sale.
I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. Looks like it's going to be a stormy day around here today.
It's not a very widespread threat, and it's not a very high threat, but it's still there north of I-40, 1 out of 5 on that threat scale. Can't completely say no to an isolated tornado, but that's a very low-end threat.
Now, that's Channel 4 Stefano DiPietro, of course, and those storms, he says, will move in around dinner time. A judge has temporarily blocked the deployment of the National Guard into Memphis.
A Tennessee judge sided with a group of elected officials who sued over the deployment, concluding that Governor Bill Lee exceeded his constitutional authority when he sent 150 troops into Memphis. The judge temporarily blocked the troops from operating in the city, though she put a ruling on hold for 5 days to allow the government to appeal. The ruling adds to a series of legal victories limiting the use of troops in major U.S. cities. Peter Haralambous, ABC News.
A Nashville woman recovering from a gunshot wound from a stray bullet. She was shot in the arm on Sunday after a man fired shots at a car driving along Sylvan Street. Neighbors tell Channel 4 that's nothing new.
At this point, we're kind of used to it because this has been going on for years. And it sometimes it'll get better and then something like this will happen.
Now, the alleged shooter has been arrested. His name is Michael Johnson. He's facing assault and weapons charges. And a man accused of following a woman to her Germantown apartment and then strangling her until she was unconscious has his first date in court today. Channel 4's Alexandria Adams.
A woman was walking home from a Sabrina Carpenter concert at Bridgestone Arena. Metro Police telling us that Jaquarius Williams followed her the entire way, grabbing her by the neck in an elevator and stated that he was going to kill her.
Williams is facing a $10 million bond and charges of attempted homicide. He had been released on probation after an attempted rape charge in 2019. That is the latest news. I'm Joan Jones. there it is. It's the 24 westbound slowdown has begun now. It's starting around around the area of 255. So, and it works its way all the way up until the joinder with 40. That is also slow this morning in the curve there. No big delays on 65 so far, and 40 is looking good. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.537 on Super Talk 99.7. You're listening to Nashville's Morning News. I am Brian Wilson in for Dan Mandis, who called me at an ungodly hour this morning to tell me that he needed me to fill in. He wasn't feeling too perky at 12:50 this morning. So we're in here this morning on short notice, but glad to be here. Sam Rutherford pushing all the blinky buttons, and we got Joan Jones in the newsroom. And, there's nothing worse than, having to, to go through an entire show when you're not feeling well. That's the worst.
So
true. And we've all had to do that thing where you suffer through a show you really probably should never have done because your voice isn't there. And you know who else has got a voice problem right now?
President Trump.
Yeah, and here's him talking about it. Maybe
not.
Sam, you got it?
I have a question about Venezuela, but can I just first ask, the health of the president's always news. Your voice sounds a little rough. Are you feeling all right?
I feel great. I was shouting at people because they were stupid about something having to do with trade in a country, and I straightened it out. But I blew my stack at these people.
Well, it sounds like there's a follow-up there, but can I ask you about Venezuela? You suggested...
There's the what?
It sounds like there's a follow-up there, but can I ask you about Venezuela?
I thought you said there was a polyp, and I said... I don't want to hear that.
Yeah, you don't want it when you're talking about vocal cords. You don't want to talk about polyps. That's no good at all. But he's laughed about it. But I mean, he's struggling through talking. They asked about his voice being a little hoarse, and he said, "I yelled at a bunch of people." Sort of like Dan does every morning when he comes in.
Yes.
Yeah, and if you believe that. But I've been in that situation where you start out a show, I'm not my best, and maybe I can just push through, and then you get into it and you realize my voice is not going to last for 4 hours. And I think that happened to me one time. I remember one time it happened to Dan where he just got where he couldn't get anything out. And I had to take over in the middle of his show to help him out. It's just the worst. It
really is.
Yeah. I mean, when you are a broadcaster, you are the thing, your tool, your instrument is your voice.
Yeah, for sure.
And anyway, would you go to well, you'd probably, I think most people in Tennessee would go along with anything that Dolly Parton came up with.
Oh, yeah.
But did you hear this? Dolly Parton will collaborate with the Tennessee Travel Stop to bring Dolly's Tennessee Travel Stop to Cornersville.
Oh.
It's gonna be like a giant Buc-ee's, except it's gonna be Dolly Parton theme.
Well, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
So what kind of things will you find in this travel stop?
I don't know. I mean, at Buc-ee's, you get the beaver nuggets. You got to have the beaver nuggets.
And the cleanest bathrooms you ever saw in your life.
Oh, they really are. I mean, I was just thinking about what is the purpose of Buc-ee's. I think I know what their long-term plan is. I think that the long term, as we move, and we eventually will move to electric vehicles, I think that the whole idea of Buc-ee's is they're strategically placed between major metropolitan areas, never close to one, but between them. And the idea is, okay, let's say I'm driving down to Birmingham, and I've got an electric car, and I need to charge it up. And, these electric cars, you can charge them in about 20 minutes on a fast charger. Mm-hmm. So what are you going to do for that 20 minutes? You're going to wander around Buc-ee's and spend money. And it gives you a wonderful place to be while you're doing that, you know? So I think that's the whole plan.
They have the coolest stores inside the Buc-ee's. Like, you can't help yourself but to go and look at all the kids' clothes, and there's a fire pit over there that's really cool. And
I never get out of Buc-ee's without spending money.
Oh, yeah.
You know, usually it's just fudge or something like that. But,
Right.
Or one of those great pulled pork sandwiches. I mean, those are amazing. They're just amazing.
So
anyway,
I'm looking here at the Dolly travel stops.
yeah.
So this is going to be in conjunction with a company that already has travel stops in Tennessee. She says that she spends so much time away from home on the road anyway that it seemed like this was something that, is like a no-brainer for her.
I can't imagine, though, that Dolly Parton rolling up in the bus and
Right.
jumping out at a truck stop. I just can't. Or a Buc-ee's even. I can't imagine. And when you get to be Dolly Parton, everywhere you go, you create a little bit of a stir.
Yeah.
Can you imagine her walking into a Buc-ee's? Oh, my
No.
goodness. Yeah.
She said the travel stops will transform it into a warm, inviting destination where everyone feels welcome to slow down, kick up their feet, and stay a while.
Yeah, I love this. All the years spent visiting Greasy Spoon cafes and truck stops. I just can't imagine Dolly rolling into a truck stop.
Or a Greasy Spoon cafe.
And give me some chicken fried steak.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, anyway. Cher is going to be the musical guest. I guess it's this weekend on Saturday Night Live. No, I'm sorry, December 20th. Cher.
Okay. I have my thoughts.
She was there. She did this 40 years ago. Cher to appear on SNL as musical guest for the first time in nearly 40 years. Wow.
Yeah. Hey, good for her that she's still
she
kicking
looks
it on
great.
stage.
I mean, my goodness.
Well,
what kind of deal did she make with the devil? I don't know, because she acts like she hasn't changed at all.
Yeah, but the devil is the plastic surgeon. Come
Yeah.
on.
You think that's it?
Oh, yes.
Absolutely. I don't know. I've always thought Cher was great. You know, I got to meet, no kidding, this is a great story.
Okay.
One of those things where you say, how in the world did this all come together? You wake up, in the news business, you never know what the day's going to present you.
Yeah.
And I was on Capitol Hill. I was reporting on Capitol Hill. This was back in the days of, I think back when I was working for Channel 5, and not before I went to Fox News. And I bumped into some congressman from California, a Republican, and we were talking about this, that, and the other. And I don't know, he said, you know what you ought to do? You ought to come join us for lunch. All the Republicans get together and have a little luncheon, and come on down and join us. And I said, hang out for a few minutes. I thought, well, what better way to, to make contact with these people and to develop sources than to go and break a little bread with them. And so I said, sure, I'll be there. And I showed up, and they sat me right next to Sonny Bono.
Oh, get out of here.
I'm not making this up. It was like, this is about the coolest thing ever. I mean, I'm sitting here, literally, Sonny Bono is sitting right next to me, and we're talking about, the news media. And it's a very informal conversation about, the news media and how we work. And he said, I don't trust the news media. Ever since my day was a Cher, they told all kinds of stories about us that weren't true. And, he started going off on it. But it was like, I'm having, it was vegetarian chili for some reason. I don't know why. They are from California, even if they are Republicans. So I have vegetarian chili. And I'm sitting there talking to Sonny Bono. And I go, this is the most weird career ever, where you never know what the day is going to present. And today it was sitting down and breaking bread with a bunch of Republican congressmen and having a conversation with Sonny Bono.
It is pretty cool. That is pretty cool.
Yeah, it was, but he died so sadly in a skiing accident, really, and that was very sad. It was all before that happened. But I got to tell you, it was an interesting conversation and an interesting little meeting, about. And then finally, they had to get down to business and they kicked me out. But and you can't be here for some of these conversations. But thanks for coming by for some vegetarian chili.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty cool. What a good story. Bet you've got a ton of those.
Well, I've always been, Joan, sort of, I've sort of been just astonished at you wake up one day, you think you know what the day's going to present, and then these weird little things just, sometimes pop up. I remember, being with Bill Clinton in New York one time. And he was just there for a fundraiser. And, fundraisers, when you are traveling with the president, you go into a restaurant or a holding area somewhere nearby. You don't really get invited in because those are private affairs, but you have to be close should there be breaking news and we need to, get something from the president to the American people. That's why the traveling press corps is there. And so, we were at an Italian restaurant around the corner. They were in a big theater seeing a show, and with the big fat cat Democrat donors, and all of a sudden they came in. Secret Service said, "Line up, let's go." And you always worry when that happens.
Yeah.
Because you're thinking, well, what's going to happen here? Did something happen? You're always worrying. You're on high alert. And they run us down an alley and in a back door and up a stairwell and around a bunch of hallways. I had no idea where we were going. And when they opened the last door, we were in the balcony overseeing the show, in the Lincoln balcony. And all of the fat cats were downstairs, and there was Bill and Hillary, and they were, and I got to see the Lion King that night.
Nice.
From the Lincoln balcony of the theater where they were playing. It was really amazing.
That is very
cool. And I
cool.
said, in a million years, when I got up this morning, I didn't imagine that I would be sitting here. You just find yourself, these weird things just land in your lap.
Yeah.
I always thought that was one of the unusual things. And story-wise, I can't tell you. You go in thinking this is going to be the story today, and then it completely gets blown up by some development that nobody saw coming.
Yeah.
And you change gears, and that was the way it was on 9/11. I mean, I came to work on 9/11 in my jeans because I was going to go to do a feature story with Congressman Dick Armey. Remember Dick Armey?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, he was he used to get up every morning and fish on the Potomac before he went to work.
Get out of here.
And so I was going to go fishing with Dick Armey, was the story. Just a fun little feature.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, I'm in the middle of covering 9/11. And, I'm in jeans. And if you see some of the pictures from that day, you'll notice I'm wearing a pair of black jeans because that's what I came to work in.
How about that?
Yeah, I know. Anyway.
I was in Philly at that time.
What's that?
I was in Philly at that time.
Yeah, you never know. Like I say, you never know exactly how these things are going to develop as the day goes along. Have you heard the story about the pennies?
That the
We're not
pennies
going to have pennies anymore.
Yeah, the mint.
I don't know
has
what I
stopped
think about that.
creating them.
We've had the penny since 1792, but apparently now it costs 4 cents to make a penny.
And so it doesn't make sense anymore to do it.
I
mean,
that
right?
was a pun. Was that a pun or just
Yeah, doesn't make sense. Oh, I get it. I didn't even mean to.
So the other day, Scott Bessent was in the I guess the what do they call it? A treasury where they make what do they call it? A printing? No,
the mint.
Mint. Thank you. I don't know why that word wouldn't come to me. He was in the mint as they struck the final 5 pennies, and they say that those 5 pennies are worth now between $2 and $5 million.
Whoa!
Because they were the last pennies.
Wow.
I have a very sad story about penny collections.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, when I was a kid, my dad gave me a penny, one of those books with pennies in them, and you'd like, here's a 1901 and a 1902, and you go right on through and you fill out all these books with old pennies, and you're always looking through your pennies to see if you got anything that's old or valuable. And my dad had completed a book, and he gave it to me, and he thought, well, you can continue, this lovely little hobby that I started, and you can collect pennies as well.
Yeah.
Except I used mine on the ice cream truck when it came by.
You did not.
No, I was just a kid. Boy, did I get in trouble. I mean, I never got in trouble like I did when he found out that I'd spent his penny collection with the ice cream man.
Oh, man, oh, man.
Even then, I had a sweet tooth.
At least
All
you've
right.
been true to it, right?
That's right. I comes from an honest place.
Yeah.
We'll leave it there. 51 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7.
And coming up here at 6 o'clock, a stormy Tuesday is ahead for us. Stefano's got the forecast. Also, looks like Democrats are now walking back their expectations about this House vote that's going to happen today. We'll tell you about that coming up here at 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It's 56 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock. Good morning, Tuesday, November 18th. Going to be a nice day on tap. We're looking, well, no, actually, that's not really true. I should take that back. 70% chance of rain, yeah. But a high of 69, which, that's not too bad this time of year.
Mm-hmm.
but it'll be wet. A good chance of storms north of I-40s, so keep an eye on the sky. They say, I think they say, well, it could get rough. I don't know. It's the lowest level of rough. Does that make sense?
It does, and it's only above the I-40 line. So
down, so there you go.
Yeah.
So for me being beneath the I-40 line, maybe I'll be all right. We'll see.
I think that there are 3 points
could be.
here.
Oh, excuse me. I didn't mean for him to start talking. I did want to go to this little bit of sound of Scott Bessent, the Secretary of the Treasury, talking about tariffs and what will happen if the Supreme Court says tariffs are unconstitutional. And it was during this soundbite that we realized that our Secretary of Treasury apparently has trouble counting. You're just saying.
Oh, no.
So pay attention.
I think that there are 3 points here. Is one, this is one of President Trump's signature policies, and traditionally the Supreme Court does not interfere with a president's signature policy. 2, this is an emergency authority, which is IEPA. President Trump has successfully used that. As we talked about earlier, on the rare earths problem, he threatened substantial tariffs on China, and that made the rare earths flow. Numerous of the peace deals that he's negotiated, he threatened to put tariffs on the countries, and that got us to the peace deal. 3, when we're talking about fentanyl, we had fentanyl tariffs. And what is more of an emergency than hundreds of thousands of Americans dying every year? No one had been able to get the Chinese to the table with these precursor drugs. I would push this back onto the Supreme Court. I don't think this ruling is going to go against us, but if it does, what's their plan for refunds? I don't think the Supreme Court wants to wade into a mess like that.
Yep.
Well, he went on to say 3. He had another 3. There was 1, 2, 3, and 3. But I cut it out. I'm sorry. I forgot that I edited it out. Well, it's early in the morning, and I haven't had much coffee, and, I wasn't expecting to be here. $2,000 tariff rebate may be coming to low and middle income taxpayers in 2026. Moderate to low-income Americans should expect to see $2,000 tariff dividend checks sometime after mid-2026, President Donald Trump announced at a press briefing. He narrowed the check arrival window after saying on November 14th that the checks would reach taxpayers next year. We're going to be issuing dividends somewhere prior to, probably the middle of next year. What would be happening the middle of next year? What would be happening? Oh, yeah, midterm elections. That's what it is. It is earmarked for people in low and middle income brackets, and that will be, I know, very welcome. I think there's a real question here about whether that happens, though, and if the Supreme Court, as it seems like it's poised to do, says that the tariffs are unconstitutional. I hope that's not the case, because I think there's real good that came of all that, but we'll have to watch and see. So there you have it. Maybe next year, a couple grand coming your way. It is now time for the news with Joan Jones at 6 o'clock.
Good morning. It is now 6 o'clock, and I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. We'll have a stormy Tuesday. Stefano DiPietro telling us that the areas that'll get the most severe weather are above the I-40 line.
Right now, the main threat will be heavier rainfall, high wind gusts. Some of the strongest thunderstorms could have some good hail with them as well. The tornado threat, extremely low, not necessarily zero, but we are going to find plenty of dry time through the day itself.
So the storms will move in around dinner time. Of course, you'll want to keep it here for all the latest on these storms throughout the day. The House is taking a vote to likely release the FBI files on sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, but already Democrats appear to be walking back their expectations. Here's ABC's Catherine Falders on that.
The House is going to vote for it. The Senate's going to vote for it. And Trump says he's going to sign it. But we really can't be so sure that all those documents are going to be released. And then if the Department of Justice, by the way, says that they're going to release all the documents, how do we know that that's the full trove of information? I think it's going to be hard to tell.
Yeah, Democrats have already released portions of emails sent by Epstein without identifying the recipients in some cases, and definitely not identifying the context. Market numbers brought to you by Beacon Capital Management, online at beaconcm.com.
Losses for tech shares dragged down the broader market Monday, with the Dow Jones sliding 557 points to close at 46,590. The Nasdaq Composite and S&P 500 each gave up about 0.9%. Futures overnight were lower. A major driver of Monday's losses is investor concern about an AI bubble as NVIDIA prepares to release its third quarter earnings tomorrow. Many see the California company as a bellwether of the AI industry, providing chips to some of the largest players. Tesla is issuing a recall, not of its cars, but of batteries used as a backup power source for homes equipped with the company's solar panels. Tesla has received 22 reports of the batteries overheating, sometimes catching fire. Jim Ryan, ABC News.
Also, for the third straight time, Home Depot's earnings fell short. And this time, the company is also cutting its full-year profit outlook. Home Depot saying that consumers aren't spending on home improvements like they used to. And stock futures are all pointing down once again this morning. That is the latest. We've got traffic coming up next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News. Okay, the backups on 24 are becoming legendary once again this morning. It's already backed up to the Smyrna area all the way in the Laverne area. Looks like it's really slow this morning. Not sure why. There's nothing showing on the cameras so far. We'll keep checking that out. Once again, as you get to the merge with 40, that slows down. Things are beginning to slow down as well on 65 and 24 from the north. 40 is looking okay so far. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 6 minutes past the hour at 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Dan Mandis off today. I am Brian Wilson filling in, trying to keep up with everything that's going on and bringing you news and information you can use. Dan should be back, I think, soon. But apparently he wasn't feeling very good overnight, and so I got the 12:50 a.m. call. Please, can you help me out? So here I am, happy to help Dan out. You know, Dan, it takes an awful lot, Joan, I think you'll agree, for Dan to call in sick.
He's funny because
He
sometimes
plays wounded.
Yeah, he does. He won't feel well, and he'll say, "Oh, maybe I should call out," but then he never does.
No.
So he's usually a trooper, and
he's one of the
not
hardest
today.
working guys that I know, honestly.
Yeah.
He works all the time. He's always and puts so much effort into this morning show. You know, when I listen to Dan do the morning show, the one thing I'm always marvel at, and because I know what it takes to put it together, is how much sound he puts together.
Yes.
So that you can hear the actual newsmakers speak. I mean, when he works hard on that, and that's a lot of work. To get that stuff ready every morning. And the other thing is he never turns down a shift. If somebody needs him to fill in, he fills in. I mean, I just always have been real impressed with Dan's work ethic and how much he cares about trying to do a good show every day. Anyway, he'll be back, and I'm glad somebody remembers my phone number, Good to know that, even though I'm in semi-retirement, they'll still call me up, and I get to come and play radio in the morning. There's some new information coming out about the would-be assassin in Butler, Pennsylvania. This guy Thomas Crooks. We're really fortunate that we have a great journalist. They're always really in every era. There are a few really great journalists who know how to dig, who get great information, who tell the story, are on the cutting edge, and who break stuff open all the time. And to me, probably one of the best print reporters of our time is Miranda Devine with the New York Post. She was the one who cut through all of that stuff with the Russia, et cetera, and she has been remarkable in her reporting. And she has some information about that assassination attempt and what we have begun to learn about this 20-year-old Thomas Crooks. Here, let me just go through some of this stuff. You know the story. He was there that day in Butler. Tried to kill the president, missed the president, nicked his ear, but killed Corey Comparatore and wounded David Dutch and James Copenhaver. It was a serious thing. FBI Director Chris Wray told Congress back in July of 2024 that the Bureau had found nothing in Crooks' online history that pointed to a motive or a political ideology. A week later, his deputy told Congress that comments posted on one of Crooks' social media accounts appear to reflect anti-Semitic and anti-immigration themes to espouse political violence and were described as being extreme in nature. So they went from nothing to, he's an anti-Semite, etc. But thanks to an enterprising source who uncovered Crooks' hidden digital footprint, writes Miranda Devine, we can see that Congress was misled by omission because they left out an entire section of Crooks' online interactions from January to August of 2020, when it appears that he did an ideological backflip and went from being pro-Trump to rabidly anti-Trump, and then he went dark. I mean, when you say went dark, he can't find his footprint online anymore and never posted again. There were 17 accounts: YouTube, Snapchat, Venmo, Zelle, GroupMe, Discord, Google Play, Quizlet, Chess.com, and Quora. The online interactions when Crook was ages 15 to 17 give us a good idea of his evolution. He apparently, it was, if you talk to this source, he says the danger, I don't know, it's a he, the political danger that Crooks posed was visible for years in public online spaces. His radicalization, violent rhetoric, and obsession with political violence were all documented under his real name. The threat was not hidden. And get into some of this stuff. 737 public comments on YouTube. And he went from being a very pro to anti-Trump. And the question is, well, what happened? How did that all come about? In the early 2020s, Miranda writes, Crooks' online behavior flipped 180 degrees, and he became very critical of Trump, Fox News, and Republican complaints about mail-in voting. Well, what was going on during that time? What would possibly have caused him to become so radicalized? Well, apparently he got in touch with a guy who was... I'm pulling it. I'm trying to go through about 15 pages here. Oh yeah, wait for a minute. No, apparently he was a person who went on a routine basis to these websites for furries, people who think they're animals. I don't know. Given Crooks' pattern of tracking high-profile mass shootings and violent events, the source believes it's plausible that he adopted the name of a FBI agent in one of these websites as a joke. And he was apparently interested in furries and exploring gender identity. Have we heard that before? No. He described himself, this is what I was looking for. He describes himself with the pronouns they, them on the platform DeviantArt, which is one of the biggest online hubs for furry art and the furry community. If you don't know, a furry is someone who has an interest in animal characters, often sexual fetishes of some kind. One of the people Crooks interacted with, this is good, was Willie Teppes, a member of Norwegian neo-Nazi group, the Nordic Resistance Movement, which has been designated a terrorist organization by our State Department. Teppes encouraged violence and Crooks' extremism. Using a Maoist phrase, political power comes from the barrel of a gun, which Crooks has repeated many, many times. In one comment, more than a year after Butler, Teppes commented to another user that he had been contacted by both Russian and American intelligence with regard to the shooting. So there. Was he radicalized by this guy? I mean, the questions certainly are, it's a fair question to ask if that was the case. But one way or the other, what we are finding out here is that you know, the FBI and the people who were in charge at the time of the shooting were doing everything they could to keep information like this from the public domain. And if it weren't for, you know, people who are pretty good at digging out that kind of stuff in the private sector, we wouldn't know any of this. The man was very troubled, and apparently was in contact with radicals on the dark web, I'm guessing. Here's another version of the story. This one is the Fox News version of this. The digital trail of President Donald Trump's would-be assassin Thomas Crooks tells a quite different story than the FBI's congressional statements about the 20-year-old, says Miranda Devine. We were sort of led to believe that Thomas Crooks was really a ghost, that there was no motive that could be ascertained from his online accounts. And yet a source has provided us with a lot of information from 17 different online accounts that Thomas Crook had. She says we need a better explanation as to what was motivating this young man. The columnist described a commonality between Crooks and Charlie Cook's alleged assassin, Tyler Robinson, who is charged with the murder of the late conservative activist. It was all kinds of different accounts. Very bizarre. We also saw with Charlie Kirk's killer, who was involved in this bizarre furry culture. What was going? It's this furry thing. I don't understand it. I don't get it at all. Very concerning. But you'll notice in Portland, where all the protests are going on, and in the northwest of this country, the people who are out there on the streets are these furry people. They dress up like furry creatures. And it's just a bizarre, weird little thing. So he was involved in that. He was apparently confused about his gender identity, and he was in contact with very bad people on the internet. Why is it we're only now beginning to learn about this? Time for a quick stop to see what's going on with traffic and weather, 16 past the hour. We're looking for a pretty good day today, a high of around 69 degrees, but it could rain this afternoon and get a little rough about the time you're driving home. So keep an eye on the sky. They're talking about, maybe severe weather, but sort of at the low end of the severe weather scale. All right, let's put it that way. One way or the other, 69 for a high today, and right now we have 47 degrees in Metro Nashville. Michelle Obama. Oh, my goodness. Have you heard these latest comments from her? She's doing a roundtable. I think she's out there talking a lot right now. And, there was a question about, are we ready for, why is it we're not ready for a woman as president? And she went off on this. Here is Michelle Obama, because everybody talks about Michelle Obama. She's going to be the next Democrat candidate. You can take it from me. I don't think that's going to happen. Everything I know, and I've been consistent about this, and everybody said, oh, she's going to run, she's going to be the nominee, it's all going to happen. I never believed that, because she hated Washington, and she has some very interesting things to say about American voters.
Well, as we saw in this past election, sadly, we ain't ready. That's why I'm like,
ready for a woman as president.
Don't even look at me about running, because you all are lying. You're not ready for a woman. You are not. So don't waste my time. We got a lot of growing up to do. And there's still, sadly, a lot of men who do not feel like they can be led by a woman, and we saw it. What was the question?
Well, look, just a moment. I just need to set the record straight here. I don't think that Americans are opposed to having an African-American president. We had Barack Obama. I don't think that we are against having strong female leaders in key positions of authority. I think we are ready for a presidential candidate who is a woman. I don't think there's any problem. And I think if the right person came along, that would be no problem. I think Americans would have no problem in pulling the lever for a woman candidate, if a good one came along. But who are the women candidates who have come along? Well, one of them is Kamala Harris. And she was an unmitigated disaster as a candidate and a vice president. It wasn't about women. It wasn't about, I can't vote for a woman. I just can't bring myself to vote for. It's not that at all. It's, I don't like her. She wasn't very likable. And you can say what you want to say about politics, but one of the things that is true is that people tend to vote for people they like. Or they vote against somebody they dislike. That seems to be what motivates most people. So at the end of the day, you had a disastrous presidential term with Joe Biden, and the economy was in the toilet. Things were bad, and they choose to put up eventually Kamala Harris, and she's just the worst candidate known to mankind. Well, no, there's one worse, and that was the last person they ran for president as a woman, and that was Hillary Clinton, or Hillary. I'm telling you, or as I like to call her, Hillary. I'm sorry. Well, don't you hate it when they don't hit the right buttons? I hate it when that happens. Hillary Clinton. Yeah, they chose Hillary Clinton, and then they chose Kamala Harris. Well, choose somebody that the American people can respond to. It's not about being a woman. It's about being a candidate who was not at all likable and not very good. Hillary Clinton, probably one of the worst retail politicians known to mankind. She had no common touch. She could not relate to the average people. She insulted half of Americans. She's just sort of a nasty human being to begin with. And at the end of the day, not very likable. And voters rejected her. Then comes along Kamala Harris. Not very good as a vice president, not very good on the stump, talks with word salad. And at the end of the day, the American people said, I don't like her, and I'm not going to vote for her. And they voted for Donald Trump instead. This is not about gender. At least I don't think so. I think the American people are open to anybody who they perceive to be competent. Somebody who they feel like, has the right stuff to be president of the United States. And I got to tell you, I've had I don't understand this whole idea that America's not ready for women in powers of position. I have, in the industry that I've been in, I've had some of the greatest bosses, and they were all women. My great bosses across everyone that I've ever worked for that I really thought was a stupendous boss was a woman. So I just don't think in my experience, that didn't ring true. And it seems like what she was trying to say here is, the reason that we failed is because Americans are basically misogynist, I guess is the word I'm looking for. I don't think that we are, by and large. I think that we are open to the right candidate, and for her to suggest that the only reason why Kamala Harris was not made president is because we somehow have a fear of a woman president, not true. I just don't think that was the motivating factor. The motivating factor was she's a blithering idiot, not very smart, not very good, and had served in an administration where they didn't accomplish a dadgum thing and damn near ran the country into the ground. So, sorry, Michelle. I don't think that's what it is. Let's call it 23 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk.
Coming up, we'll take a look at the court order that has stopped the National Guard from being deployed in Memphis. That came down last night. We'll tell you what to expect there coming up at 6:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Good morning. It is now 6:30, and I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. A Davidson County court has put a temporary hold on Governor Bill Lee's authority to deploy the National Guard in Memphis. Here's Memphis reporter Joyce Peterson at Action News 5.
The judge is ruling on the lawsuit that Shelby County Mayor Lee Harris and other Democratic leaders filed to stop the deployment of the troops, saying it's illegal. Mayor Harris contends Governor Bill Lee cannot deploy the Tennessee National Guard for civil unrest unless there is a rebellion or invasion. The ruling comes just days after the Guard doubled the amount of troops in the Bluff City.
Now, Governor Lee has 5 days to appeal this ruling. His office has not responded to this judge's ruling just yet. Also note that this ruling is limited to the National Guard. It does not affect the Memphis Safe Task Force, which will continue to operate without the support of the National Guard for now. In Broadview, Illinois, just outside of Chicago, the mayor there declaring a civil emergency. Now, we've seen lots of violent protest over the immigration raids at an ICE processing facility there.
Mayor Katrina Thompson declaring a civil emergency here in Broadview because of a series of recent threats. Mayor Thompson, in a statement citing a death threat made against her on October 13th, which was reported to the FBI, and a telephoned bomb threat made against Village Hall, as the village has faced criticism for restricting protest hours around the Broadview ICE Processing Center.
That's ABC's Eric Horng reporting. Last Friday, outside that facility, more than 20 people were arrested and 4 officers were injured. Meantime, the mayor of Raleigh, North Carolina, announcing Border Patrol agents will start operations in that area today after federal agents fanned out across nearby Charlotte over the weekend, detaining more than 130 people within 48 hours. Raleigh Mayor Janet Cowell releasing a statement last night. She said the federal action was not requested within her city. Looks like X is down this morning. It appears to be related to a Cloudflare outage. So this may affect other websites as well. Cloudflare says it is aware of the outage and it is investigating. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News. Well, there it is. Now we know what's happening on 24 this morning that's slowing traffic down. It's a crash on the eastbound side of 24 at Haywood Lane, exit 57, and it takes out the right lane. Pretty slow behind it, too, but it's also slow on the westbound side. It appears everybody is watching what's happening on the other side of the roadway. 65 southbound, right at the I-24 exit, that's 86. A crash there takes out the right shoulder. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
"37 minutes past the hour at 6 o'clock. Brian Wilson filling in for the ailing Dan Mandis, who called me early this morning, saying I'm feeling a little puny. Or I don't know, he didn't use that word. That's what my mom used to say. You feeling a little puny today? So
I never heard that before.
You never heard that before?
No.
I don't know why. My mom said weird things. And, the thing is that she would have these weird phrases. Growing up in Texas, and she was raised in Hobbs, New Mexico, which, explains a lot. But one way or the other, she would come up with these weird phrases, and I would use them, and people would look at me and say, what does that mean? And I knew what it meant. But when I stopped and thought about it, I said, I don't know anybody else who says that. But she used to say, you feeling a little puny today, honey? Well, maybe you should just stay home from school.
She sounds sweet.
She was. She was a nice lady. I am speaking of school, I am continually worried about, what we expose our kids to in the classroom. I think that when you look at the generation that, that sort of went very, very left, it's because of what they were hearing in classroom. And I witnessed this, in my daughter's own education. She'd come in and say, what'd you learn today? And I would hear some of the most amazing things. Oh, you really? And how do you feel about that? And I mean, there was an indoctrination effort in some quarters. And really, a classroom, I used to have a great history teacher, Mrs. Hirsch. And Mrs. Hirsch, and he got me so excited about government and history and that kind of stuff that it became a lifelong passion for me. And quite frankly, most of what I know about government, she taught me. And I got all the way to Washington, D.C. on that high school education and Mrs. Hirsch's history class and government class. And we would talk about whatever was going on in the world. And yet at the end of the day, at the end of the year, if you'd said to me, do you think Mrs. Hirsch is a Republican or a Democrat? I couldn't have told you. I wouldn't have had any idea based on the things she said in the classroom. And that's the way it's supposed to be. We're not supposed to use the classroom as a way to indoctrinate our young people with, one way or the other. We really shouldn't use it that way. Now the story of a Tennessee teacher by the name of Emily Orbison. She may well be the granddaughter of Roy Orbison, the singer. But let's put that on hold for a moment. She's in the classroom, and this is being reported, by the way, on the Federalist. Let me just get into it. After suspending her without pay in September, the Williamson County School District now says Franklin, Tennessee high school science teacher Emily Orbison conduct, posting abhorrent comments celebrating conservative icon Charlie Kirk's assassination, did not justify employee discipline. In other words, she got on social media and said something that was, I think, pretty reprehensible with regard to Charlie Kirk right after his assassination, and she was removed from the classroom. She was reinstated, however, on November 11th, according to Chalk Beat Tennessee, a leftist nonprofit news outlet that reports on education issues. The district's reinstatement letter informed Roberson she would receive back pay to September 15th. Tennessee conservatives are calling the reinstatement a disgusting sellout. So let's get into what she had said and what happened. As the Federalist first reported in September, Orbison in her Instagram rant highlighted a quote from Kirk in which the slain Second Amendment defender said, and this is what Charlie Kirk did say, "It's worth to have, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights. That's prudent. That's a prudent deal. That's rational." Orbison's post sardonically asserted that it is prudent that the Franklin High School teacher should have to go through a regular school shooting drills to reassure kids that when we get shot at, I will be there. And don't even get me started on the vile things, talking about Kirk, this POS has said about women. My blood is boiling. She said, "Don't mourn his death," referring back to his quote, "It's just the price of doing business. Completely rational." She posted the comments on September 10th while the Turning Point USA founder was speaking to thousands of students at a university in Utah. And there we go. The post outraged members of the community, including Williamson County School Board members. "Let me be clear, the matter will be taken seriously and addressed promptly. Our students, family, and community deserve respect and professionalism from those entrusted to teach." Williamson County School Board member Claire Reeves, wife of a Republican State Representative Lee Reeves, wrote in her Facebook post about this story. She was suspended and reinstated after saying what I think are particularly vile things. Williamson County parents, are you okay with this? Are you all right? I mean, what happened? Were they right to suspend her? I believe they were. You know, free speech. Everybody talks about free speech. Oh, you can't touch free speech. Free speech it gives you the right to say anything in the world that you want to say, even the most reprehensible things. You have the right to say them, but you are not free from the consequences of your speech. In other words, free speech is not free from consequences. If you say stupid stuff, if you say reprehensible things and people react, oh, well, it's the price of free speech. With great rights come great responsibilities. Yeah, you can say anything you want to, but if you're a teacher and it ends up on social media and everybody sees it and everybody gets outraged about it, don't be surprised if you get suspended. But not in Williamson County. No, we'll put you right back in. We'll give you all your back pay, pat you on the back, and we'll move on to fight another day. I think this is incredibly, incredibly wrong. By the way, there's another, talking about education, top Michigan official sparks online firestorm when asked to name the number of genders. This is Michigan Chief Deputy Superintendent of Education Sue Cardell in crosstalk with GOP State Representative Jay DeBoyer. I'll get to that in just a moment after we check in real quick on traffic and weather. We're looking for a high today of around 69 degrees right now, 48 degrees and some spooky-looking clouds here, at least out my window. All right, we're talking about what happened with education and how, we have so many people there who are indoctrinating our children with bizarre things, including a case in Tennessee where a teacher got on and said reprehensible things about the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and then they were suspended and now reinstated in Williamson County, Franklin, Tennessee. That's where it happened. Now we have this other case involving a top Michigan educational expert, a Michigan Chief Deputy Superintendent of Education, Sue Carnell, being asked some questions by GOP State Representative Jay DeBoyer about issues regarding gender.
There's lots of things in this proposed guidelines that do not line up with the beliefs of parents. They do not believe it is the role of the government, which, by the way, you are, to dictate these kinds of things. Things like you said, the science of gender. How many genders are there?
Long pause.
How many genders are there?
Different people have different beliefs on that.
Really? Well, I mean, I guess you can have any belief you want, but really, honestly, come on.
Well, you can believe all you want, but science says there's two. So why is it that we believe we have to put this indoctrination into our you can believe whatever you want, and that's perfectly okay. And any parent can believe whatever they want, and that's perfectly okay. And any politician can believe whatever they want, and that's perfectly okay. But why are we putting it in the curriculum to educate our children about that? What's the reason behind that?
I mean, it's a pretty fair question, and this is exactly right. You are entitled to have any belief you want to have, but when you put it in the curriculum to teach our young people, we should be teaching truth, not a bunch of nonsense. Well, what we really ought to be teaching is how to read and to write and to do math. You know, the thing that an education is supposed to give you, an education. We don't need this other cultural BS in the way. Long pause again.
The reason behind it is that we find that children who are gender diverse are being harassed, bullied in school. We can't make education gains if students feel unsafe.
Well, I can't help how somebody feels or how they perceive themselves to be. But, you know, the question is, if it's dangerous in a classroom, why is it dangerous? What kind of discipline issues do you have there that you can't keep people safe in a classroom? I think they probably create more of a storm by teaching this nonsense.
Wouldn't disagree with you on that. Completely agree that we have to keep our children safe. But are you saying that by you providing this education on gender fluidity or multiple gender theory, are you saying that what that will do is it will stop those kinds of behaviors in school?
The standards point to understanding tolerance, inclusivity, and based on what we know from Massachusetts, it has made a difference.
Oh my goodness. Well, they're Massachusetts. There's your standard. There's the gold standard right there. Whatever they do in Massachusetts, that's exactly what we ought to do. You know that in Michigan, where this dialogue took place, 3/4, 75% of kids do not read at grade level. What's wrong here? It's so easy to see this. Teach the basics of education. The rudimentary things. I mean, if your kids can't read on grade level, I mean, reading, especially around 9 years old, if you're not starting to figure out reading in a pretty significant way at about 9 years old, you're going to get behind and you will never catch up. It's such an important time. We learn to read in the first grade, but by the time we get to the second, we get to the third grade, you're supposed to be reading pretty well. And if you cannot read, you will never have a great educational experience. Why don't we focus on that instead of this gender BS that they want to put in the curriculum? It's just, it's not appropriate. Teach kids how to write. Teach kids how to read. Teach kids how to do math. I mean, it didn't work for me, but I mean, they tried. I mean, I'm telling you, get back to the basics here and you'll do so much better with these kids. Focus on the thing that you're supposed to be doing. Job one, when you're an educator, is to educate. 51 past the hour.
Coming up here on Super Talk, a man arrested after allegedly chasing a couple through a local park with a knife. That story coming up here at 7 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right. Now you're talking. If you know anything about the history of rock and roll, you will immediately know that is the voice of the one, the only, the very talented in his day, Buddy Holly. And he's so important to the rock and roll development of rock and roll that he influenced the Beatles and others. It's really remarkable there that he built this entire musical career out of a little town in West Texas called Lubbock. Joan, have you ever been to Lubbock?
I have not been to Lubbock.
Well, when you grow up in West Texas and you got to, and I worked in Amarillo and I grew up in Odessa, and halfway between them is Lubbock. And so I've been through Lubbock a lot over the course of my career. In fact, you can't, in Texas, you follow the Dallas Cowboys, and if you're from West Texas, because West Texas is different than the rest of Texas.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you followed the Texas Tech Red Raiders, who are having a great season, by the way, which is more than I can say about the Tennessee Titans.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. There was a contest, by the way, the other day. They're giving away tickets to a Titans game.
Yeah.
Second place winner got a ticket to the Titan game. First place winner could have the tickets, but they didn't have to go to the game.
Nice.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But anyway, in Lubbock, it's where Buddy Holly is from, and they are very proud of their native son. There's Buddy Holly Boulevard. There's a whole area of restaurants over there, and they put up these crosswalks that have the Buddy Holly iconic glasses. The sort of the black frame glasses that he was so known for wearing. Well, they're in the crosswalks. They're painted as to sort of, to pick up on the fact that it's the hometown of Buddy Holly. Now they're going to have to take them down. Apparently, a Trump administration directive targeting political road markings had left places like Lubbock, Texas, helpless to challenge broad new policies. The 4 giant pairs of glasses are simple and striking, rendered in a crosswalk of an intersection in Lubbock in white paint. It's just the outline of these glasses. Are they road murals? Are they public art? Are they a safety hazard? Whatever they are, the street-bound specs are now verboten, a casualty of the Trump administration's crackdown on artistic displays on the nation's roadway. Basically, what they wanted to do was they wanted to do all these Black Lives Matters things. They wanted those to go away. And so in Washington, D.C., they went away. In Laredo, Texas, they removed a road mural that criticized President Trump's so-called border wall. But apparently now, in Lubbock, they're going to have to take away the Buddy Holly crosswalks. Interestingly enough, this story from Channel 5 here in Nashville. In a collaboration between the Ryman Auditorium and Nashville Downtown Partnership, a new crosswalk pays tribute to the Ryman's famous stained glass windows. The crosswalk goes between 5th and Broadway Shopping Center and the Ryman. As the work was underway Monday, did they not hear about this law? They were saying, yeah, I like it. But will it survive? Will it still be here under these Trump rules, or will they have to go away? Inquiring minds want to know. Hey, it's 7 o'clock. Time for more news with Joan Jones.
Good morning. I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. Hey, we are expecting some thunderstorms later on this afternoon, late this afternoon. Stick around. We've got the forecast with Stefano coming right up. A man has been arrested after he allegedly chased a couple that had been walking through Bicentennial Capitol Mall State Park Saturday. Court documents say that at first, the 38-year-old man, Thomas Milam, was playing guitar, but then things turned ugly.
According to arrest documents, the woman had an interaction with the suspect who then began chasing her and her boyfriend. The male victim says Milan stated, quote, "You better run, I'm going to cut your throat." Now, he reports that Milan dragged the knife along a brick wall, causing it to spark.
And that's News 2's Peyton Kennedy there. Officers caught up with Milam and arrested him. His bond is set at $85,000. A school bus driver was injured yesterday morning after being struck by an elementary school student. Channel 4's Lydia Fielder.
The school district told us a student from Waverly Belmont hit the driver this morning. The driver was taken to the hospital and is expected to be okay.
The driver's injuries were minor. No word on what led to that incident. Accused quadruple murderer Austin Drummond pleading not guilty to all charges yesterday in his first court appearance. Action News 5's Michaela Redmond said that his lawyers, though, are angling to make some changes in this case.
Drummond's defense attorney, Brian Huffman, told Judge Mark Hayes they are planning to file a motion for a change of venue. Currently, the state and defense are working to come to an agreement about a protective order on the discovery of evidence, which was filed by the state. Judge Hayes said if the two sides can't come to an agreement, they will take up the issue at Drummond's next court date.
His next court appearance on this case is in March. ICE agents have arrested an illegal immigrant from Uzbekistan who was wanted in his own country for having ties to a terrorist group. Fox News' Madeline Rivera says Akror Bazarov was picked up earlier this month while driving an 18-wheeler in Kansas.
2023, he was arrested by Border Patrol and then released despite an arrest warrant issued for him in his native country of Uzbekistan. Authorities there had issued one for him in 2022, accusing him of being a member of a terrorist organization, calling for jihad online, and recruiting others to join the movement.
Now, there's a bit of a different twist on this one. He was issued his CDL in Pennsylvania. He had been granted authorization to work in the U.S. in January of 24 by the Biden administration. Market numbers brought to you by Beacon Capital Management, online at beaconcm.com. Well, steep losses on Wall Street yesterday could extend into trading today on concern about valuations of AI-related stocks. Also a sign of investors' jitters, Bitcoin dropped briefly below 90,000. Right now, the Dow futures are down 358. The NASDAQ futures minus 175. S&P futures, they're down 38 points. That's the latest news, traffic and weather next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News. Okay, it is a crash this morning in Goodlettsville, Vietnam Veterans Boulevard, the eastbound lanes at Center Point Road, exit 2. The drivers are getting by on the shoulder there. Also, 21st Avenue at Vandy, 21st Avenue South, south of Blakemore Avenue, there's a crash. Watch yourself on I-840 between I-24 and Almaville Road. Traffic is slowing down there. Police are reported in an area past Veterans Parkway. Not clear what they're doing there, but it's attracting attention. attention. You've also got long delays on 24 this morning, Smyrna, all the way into Nashville. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Good morning, everybody. 7 minutes past the hour of 7 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I am Brian Wilson in for Dan Mandis, who's a little under the weather here this morning. Got the call at an ungodly hour, but that's okay. There's nothing worse when you're sound asleep and it's like, 1 o'clock in the morning and the phone rings and you realize that can't possibly be something good. There's nothing good that happens in a phone call that comes at 1 o'clock in the morning. But Dan had called and asked me if I personally would just slip in that he wasn't feeling well, a little under the weather. But we think he'll be back in good shape, maybe tomorrow. In the meantime, we got to talk about what's going on in the world around us, and what's happening, I think, today in the nation's capital is that you're likely to see a vote in the House of Representatives to go ahead and release all of the Epstein files. Now, I want to just say this about the Epstein files. I have never been a big... I haven't been really enthusiastic about this particular story. I think he was a creep. I think he was a bad guy. But there's nothing in the record that seems to suggest that Trump did anything wrong. Did he know Epstein? Yeah, a lot of people knew Epstein. But around 2007, according to Trump, they had a falling out. And so... everybody is now saying, well, you're hiding something. You're hiding something. You're hiding something. Give us all of the Epstein documents. And, I've read a story here today. 65,000 pages worth of Epstein documents have been released. Some of them in the last few days have been bringing us some new stories about some of the things he was doing. But the Democrats are trying to make the case that there's something in these files that relates to Donald Trump. Look, if it were there, and the Democrats knew it, and they had it in their possession, and they knew about it, they would have already leaked it. If it were there, we would have seen something in 65,000 pages, which are being scrutinized by the Democrats. They want to know what their liability is, and they want to know if there's anything in there they can use for ammunition. So this is going to happen today, and yesterday we heard from the President of the United States. He was asked about this in great detail and asked, how do you feel about this vote? Will you sign the bill into law? Here's a little bit of what Trump had to say about all that yesterday.
I just want to be super clear on your position. Do you want to see that pass the Senate? Would you sign that bill if it gets to your desk?
I do want to. Here's what I want. We have nothing to do with Epstein. The Democrats do. All of his friends were Democrats. You look at this Reid Hoffman, you look at Larry Summers, Bill Clinton, they went to his island all the time, and many others. They're all Democrats. All I want for people to recognize a great job that I've done on pricing, on affordability, because we brought prices way down, but they're going way lower, on energy, on ending 8 wars and another one coming pretty soon, I believe. We've done a great job. And I hate to see that deflect from the great job we've done. So I'm all for it. We've already given 50,000 pages. You do know that.
It's 65,000, actually.
Like with the Kennedy situation, with the Martin Luther King situation, not to put Jeffrey Epstein in the same category, but no matter what we give, it's never enough. With Kennedy, we gave everything, and it wasn't enough. With Martin Luther King, we gave everything, and it's never enough. we've already given, I believe the number is 50,000 pages. 50,000 pages. And it's just a Russia hoax as it pertains to the Republicans. Now, I believe that many of the people some of the people that we mentioned are being looked at very seriously for their relationship to Jeffrey Epstein. But they were with him all the time. I wasn't at all. And we'll see what happens. What I just don't want Epstein to do is detract from the great success of the Republican Party, including the fact that the Democrats are totally blamed for the shutdown. You know, they cost our country hundreds of billions of dollars with that, at a lot of inconvenience. So I'm for I don't. They can do whatever they want. We'll give them everything. Sure, I would. Let the Senate look at it. Let anybody look at it. But don't talk about it too much, because honestly, I don't want to take it away from us. It's really a Democrat problem. The Democrats were Epstein's friends, all of them. And it's a hoax. The whole thing is a hoax. And I don't want to take it away from really the greatness of what the Republican Party has accomplished over the last period of time. Yeah,
so there you have it. He doesn't think it would be thinks it would be a distraction, and he's right about that. Look, here's what you're going to find. You're going to find that there are documents out there that have Donald Trump's name on them, but that doesn't mean he did anything wrong. He's already said, I had a relationship, a friendship with him, some kind of preferred, acquaintanceship, if you want to call it that, back in the 2000s. And in 2007, we had a falling out. I never went to the island. There's all kinds of evidence that Epstein and others have said that they know of nothing. Nothing has come out that says Donald Trump did anything inappropriate. And when he had the falling out, that was it. So, I don't know, but his name is in there because they did know one another, and the Democrats are going to try to take any little mention of Donald Trump in there from those times, and they're going to try to twist it into something sordid, when in fact they've got real problems on their side of the equation with regard to Epstein. Witness what's happening right now with Larry Summers, who continued to talk to Epstein even after we knew he was a pedophile. He's in trouble now. Larry Summers, former Secretary of the Treasury under Bill Clinton. Larry Summers, the president of Harvard for many years. Larry Summers still on the faculty at Harvard. Yeah, he's got some explaining to do. I don't know. It just seems to me that we're getting, everybody's wound up. And if they tell the Department of Justice to release everything, can they technically release everything? I mean, grand jury testimony is supposed to be secret. And you can say anything in a grand jury room because you don't have to provide the evidence. You do in a trial. I think this is just like all of the Russia, the Russian collusion allegation, all of that stuff. It really feels like that again. Democrats have got, what we find out in the Russia thing was it was the Democrats who were the bad actors, not Trump. And I think it's going to be the same way as we dig deep into this stuff. They'll try to twist it. They'll try to make it something that it's not. And that's just the way it seems to be playing out right now. In a moment, when we come back, more on this and why the president says his voice was hoarse. We'll get to that right after we check in on the traffic and weather at 15 past the hour. All right, looking for a high today of 69 degrees, and be weather aware this afternoon. Thunder showers, I've got to tell you, sort of spooky looking clouds out there this morning in some areas, but the thunder showers are supposed to be north of I-40, and they'll be later this afternoon, okay? So maybe for your drive home today, you want to keep an eye on the sky. Talking about the Epstein files, apparently going to be a vote in the House of Representatives to force the Department of Justice to release all the documents. Here's my question. If you think there's something that's being hidden in the Epstein files, and the Department of Justice says it's turned over all the documents, will you believe that they have turned over all the documents? I don't think you will. And if there's nothing in there, does that just reinforce? Well, they're hiding stuff because they didn't release anything that was good. Like, I think they've released 65,000 pages. I think there's some grand jury testimony that they may not be able to release. But whatever else is in the files, let it fall out and let's see where the chips fall. I don't think Trump has any exposure on this. I think there are a lot of other people who do, and there may be some Republicans who do, but not Trump. House Republicans say Democrats twisting the Epstein probe to smear Trump in a new memo. This is from Fox News. They received a 10-page memo written by GOP committee staff on the panel that argued the Democrats intentionally misrepresented information obtained by Republicans to create a narrative that was not there. Oversight Committee Democrats, led by Ranking Member Robert Garcia, Democrat, California, have intentionally mischaracterized witness testimony and selectively released information with targeted redactions in an effort to create another hoax involving President Trump. See, that's another way you can do it. Black out certain things. See, they're still hiding stuff. They blacked it out. They won't give us the real information. If the Democrats are doing the redactions, what does that tell you? They can redact a document and make us wonder what's behind the redactions. Make it suggest that maybe there was something untoward involving Trump. But when you get the redactions, apparently there's no there. Larry Summers, as I mentioned, Harvard's Larry Summers is stepping back from public commitments in a fallout over Jeffrey Epstein's emails. Ex-Treasury Secretary, Harvard professor Larry Summers announced plans Monday to step back from public commitments amid fallout from the release of emails between him and known pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. They exchanged emails and text messages well after his 2008 guilty plea in Florida for sex crimes and up until Epstein's July 2019 arrest. A trove of documents released by Republicans on the House Oversight Committee revealed last week. He says, "I'm deeply ashamed of my action and recognize the pain they have caused. I take full responsibility for my misguided decision to continue communicating with Mr. Epstein." Well, is there anything else there, Larry? What do you say, Larry? Anything else you need to be ashamed of? Well, maybe we'll find out. I don't know. Well, you may have heard that in the comments that Trump had to say about this yesterday, that he was a little raspy. Something was going on with his throat. And he was asked about it yesterday by reporters in the Oval Office. Here's what he had to say.
Mr. President, I have a question about Venezuela, but can I just first ask, the health of the president's always news. Your voice sounds a little rough. Are you feeling all right?
I feel great. I was shouting at people because they were stupid about something having to do with trade in a country, and I straightened it out. But I blew my stack at these people.
Well, it sounds like there's a follow-up there, but can I ask you about Venezuela? You suggested...
Is there what?
It sounds like there's a follow-up there, but can I ask you about Venezuela?
I thought you said there was a polyp, and I said... I don't want to hear that.
Yeah, when you're talking about vocal cords, the one thing you don't want is a polyp or a nodule. So no polyps. It was a follow-up, is what he was saying. Well, in one way or the other, he was feeling a little raspy. I don't know about you, but this time of year, I think a lot of people suffer. I think in the fall, if you have mold issues, and I do, that's when you really start to feel it in the fall. Leaves are on the ground. They're all moldy. A lot of mold in the air in the fall. So I think that may have something to do with it there. So we'll watch today to see what's going on. By the way, Representative Anna Paulina Luna, a Republican of Florida, told Newsmax on Monday that former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton are not cooperating with the House Oversight Committee's investigation of Jeffrey Epstein and will likely be subpoenaed again. This according to Newsmax. We'll call it 21 minutes past the hour of 7 o'clock.
And coming up here, a judge blocks the National Guard deployment in Memphis. Also, what's wrong with X this morning? We'll let you know. It's coming up at 7:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It's 27 minutes past the hour, almost 28 minutes past the hour of 7 o'clock. Brian Wilson in for Dan Mandis, who's under the weather today. Hopefully back tomorrow, bringing you news and information you can use about what's going on. Keep an eye on the weather today as you drive home this evening. There is the possibility of some severe thunderstorms, maybe even a low-level possibility of a spin-up tornado of some kind. We have basically a warm front that's pushing through, colliding with cold air, and moist air from the Gulf, colliding with the moist, cooler air, drier air to the north. That causes you some problems now and then, and that's what they're saying. We don't think it's it's not like a great chance of this stuff, but it is a chance, and you should keep an eye on it. Low tornado risk, could have wind and hail and severe storms about the time you're driving home today on this Tuesday, November 18th. Hey, would you go to a Dolly Parton truck stop? I don't think it's a truck stop. It's a travel stop. We'll collaborate with Tennessee Travel Shop to bring Dolly's Tennessee Travel Stop to Cornersville, Tennessee. This is the flagship location in Marshall County. Rebranded by early next summer as a way to invest in regional development and strengthen the state's tourism and infrastructure landscaping, according to a website announcing the partnership. She says, I've been into a lot of Greasy Spoon cafes over the years. I've been to truck stops and roadside pit stops, and they've given me an understanding of what travelers desire on the road. Whether you're driving a truck, a bus, or a car, you want a place that feels like home and that recharges you for the rest of your journey. Well, listen, Dolly doesn't do anything bad. She doesn't ever do anything halfway. She'll do it up right, and it'll be a thing. And people will go there. It'll be a destination. I'll tell you, a lot of people have looked at what Buc-ee's is doing, and they're saying, you know what? There's some uncharted territory in the travel stop, Buc-ee's is not a truck stop, but in that truck stop kind of thing where you're on the road, you got to get some gas, you need a bite to eat. I would stop into Dolly Parton's Tennessee Travel Stop. Would you? I think so. Hey, Joan Jones is up next with the news at 7:30.
Good morning. It is now 7:30, and I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. A judge has temporarily blocked the deployment of the National Guard into Memphis.
A Tennessee judge sided with a group of elected officials who sued over the deployment, concluding that Governor Bill Lee exceeded his constitutional authority when he sent 150 troops into Memphis. The judge temporarily blocked the troops from operating in the city, though she put a ruling on hold for 5 days to allow the government to appeal. The ruling adds to a series of legal victories limiting the use of troops in major U.S. cities. Peter Haralambous, ABC News.
A Nashville woman recovering from a gunshot wound from a stray bullet. She was shot in the arm Sunday after a man fired shots at a car driving along Sylvan Street. Neighbors tell Channel 4 it's nothing new around there.
At this point, we're kind of used to it because this has been going on for years. And it sometimes it'll get better and then something like this will happen.
The alleged shooter has been arrested, Michael Johnson. He faces assault and weapons charges. A man accused of following a woman to her Germantown apartment and then strangling her until she was unconscious has his first date in court today. Channel 4's Alexandria Adams.
A woman was walking home from a Sabrina Carpenter concert at Bridgestone Arena. Nashville police telling us that Jaquarius Williams followed her the entire way, grabbing her by the neck in an elevator and stated that he was going to kill her.
Now, Williams is facing a $10 million bond and charges of attempted homicide. He had been released on probation after an attempted rape conviction in 2019. X not working for you this morning? Well, you're not the only one. Down Detector says it's not just X either, but it's a Cloudflare issue. It's a web infrastructure company that's down and may be affecting a host of other companies as well, including our super text line. If you've been texting and we're not responding, that's because we are not getting your messages. That is the latest news, traffic, and weather next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News. Okay, so we have some problems this morning on a number of roadways. 840 in the eastbound side of Rudderville between Arno Road and Horton Highway. Watch it. There's stop-and-go traffic there. There's a crash in the median. Most drivers say they're reporting it on the eastbound side of the highway. Just be careful. It looks like it's stop-and-go either side. Same thing for 840 this morning on the westbound side in that same area. It's very slow. Lebanon Pike in Nashville, the westbound side before Spence Lane. Watch for a crash. Old Hickory Boulevard in Hermitage. On the southbound side at I-40 East, that's a crash as well. Goodlettsville, a crash on Vietnam Veterans Boulevard eastbound side at Centerpoint Road. Stop-and-go traffic from exit 1 through exit 2. And then on 24 westbound in Clarksville at ML King Parkway, there's also an accident reported this morning. Now, I'm also checking out 65 northbound. The delays begin south of Spring Hill all the way up through the Brentwood area and into Nashville this morning. Very slow there. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
"38 minutes past the hour. Brian Wilson in for Dan Mandis on Nashville's Morning News with Dan Mandis. Happy to be here with you. I got the call. Dan feeling a little under the weather, so he'll be back, we assume, tomorrow. But if not, I'm available. I'm available for parties and bar mitzvahs, whatever. It doesn't matter. We got all kinds of stuff to talk about with regard to tariffs. First of all, here's a little bit of good news, perhaps. And I want to say, I say perhaps, and I'll explain why. Trump has promised that there will be a $2,000 tariff rebate check going out to low and middle income taxpayers sometime in 2026. Now, these rebate checks will have to be approved through legislation, according to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Will that go through on Capitol Hill? I mean, I think you can get it through the House and Senate. Through the House, but maybe not the Senate. That's the question. I mean, would Democrats really want to stand in the way of giving every American $2,000? And this is all tariff money. This is not taxpayer dollars. So, moderate to low-income Americans, writes the Epoch Times, should expect to see $2,000 tariff dividend checks sometime after mid-2026. This was announced at a press briefing on the 17th of November yesterday. Trump narrowed the check arrival window, saying on November 14th that the checks would reach taxpayers next year. We're going to be issuing dividends later on, somewhere prior to, probably the middle of next year, maybe a bit later than that, Trump told reporters in the Oval Office. Well, I would do that. If I had money to give back, I definitely do it late in 2026, right? Midterm elections. That's what it's all about. President announced this will only go to taxpayers on the lower end of the income spectrum. He would come from he says, trillions of dollars. It's so far, I think it's hundreds of billions of dollars, actually. The Tax Foundation, a nonpartisan think tank, estimated on November 17th that the tariffs would raise $2.3 trillion in revenue over the next decade. But since they represent a tax increase, their negative economic impacts lower that to around $1.8 trillion. One way or the other, money is coming in, but the question is, will you actually see this check? Trump is making the promise, but he needs to go through Congress, and there's a real question about whether or not the Supreme Court will let him go forward with his tariff policy. Now, I believe his tariff policy is constitutional. And I think it's a good thing for the president of the United States to try to renegotiate a lot of these trade deals. And the way he got people to the table was by imposing these tariffs. He has systematically changed the way we do business around the world, which is a good thing and needed to happen. But at the end of the day, there's a real question about whether or not he has used his tariff authority within the framework of the Constitution. Is it unconstitutional to do those things? I don't think it is, but some think it is. And in the debate before the High Court the other day, a lot of the comments that came out of and questions that came many of the court observers, and take this with a grain of salt, but many court observers, reporters who cover the Supreme Court on a regular basis, seemed to think that there was real skepticism about Trump's ability to impose these tariffs. So if they kick out the tariffs, I don't know what we're going to do, how we get the revenue back. I mean, it's very complicated. Scott Bessent talked about that. He's the Secretary of the Treasury. Here he is talking to Maria Bartiromo.
I think that there are 3 points here. Is one, this is one of President Trump's signature policies, and traditionally this Supreme Court does not interfere with a president's signature policy.
That's not entirely true, but go ahead.
2, this is an emergency authority, which is IEPA. President Trump has successfully used that. To, as we talked about earlier, on the rare earths problem, he threatened substantial tariffs on China, and that made the rare earths flow. Numerous of the peace deals that he's negotiated, he threatened to put tariffs on the countries, and that got us to the peace deal. 3, when we're talking about fentanyl, we had fentanyl tariffs. And what is more of an emergency than hundreds of thousands of Americans dying every year? No one had been able to get the Chinese to the table with these precursor drugs. I would push this back onto the Supreme Court. I don't think this ruling is going to go against us, but if it does, what's their plan for refunds? I don't think the Supreme Court wants to wade into a mess like that.
Yep.
Well, let's see. I mean, it'd be interesting to see if they will or they won't. It's on the bubble. I mean, as I listen to the arguments before the High Court, and as I see what was laid out before them, there are real questions about whether Amy Coney Barrett could go and support these tariffs. Real questions about whether the Chief Justice can support the tariffs. So it could go either way. But I do believe he has the authority to do it. I think it's clearly it falls under his authority under foreign policy. So I hope they don't take this away from him. I hope the money stays there. I think it's been a very good way to get people to the table. And if there's a windfall, I hope we get some of it back. What a concept. I'd love to see that happen. We'll watch it very closely. But again, if it's going to happen, if you're going to get that $2,000, it will probably happen sometime mid-2026 or a little later, maybe into the early fall. Certainly before November. I can tell you that for sure. Trump announced his Liberation Day tariffs have climbed sharply from $23.9 billion in May to $28 billion in June, $29 billion in July. Total duty revenue reached $215.2 billion. So we're racking it up. And I hope some of it gets to come back to the people who pay the bills around here. What a concept. Let's call it 45 past the hour. Time for a little bit of traffic and weather. Looking for a high today in the lower 70s, maybe 69, 70, 71, somewhere in there. Gray skies. We're going to look for a 70% chance of rain this afternoon. You know, we just got through this government shutdown. I haven't been with you on the radio since the government went back into business. It looks like I heard yesterday, or I saw on TV yesterday, where they believe, Sean Duffy, the Secretary of Transportation, believes that, you know, we're sort of back to where we need to be with regard to air transport, and that's good that got resolved before Thanksgiving. But one way or the other, you know, the real question can be asked, who won and who lost in all of that? I think it's pretty clear that the Democrats are getting blamed. It seems that way to me. I mean, the Democrats, there's a core group of Democrats who believe it's the Republicans. But I think, you know, when you look at where people are, they've done some polling on this, and it looks like Americans blame the Democrats a lot more than they blame the Republicans. The 43-day government shutdown has exposed the intensifying battle between progressives and centrists over the direction of the Democrat Party in 2026 and beyond, an ideological struggle that could determine whether Congress can avoid another lapse in federal funding. That would take place in February. The intra-party struggle is taking place on Capitol Hill as well as key states around the country, such as Maine, Michigan, Minnesota, Iowa, and Texas, where progressive Senate Democrat candidates are vying against more mainstream Democrats ahead of the 2026 midterm elections. Yeah, I mean, this is going to be, I mean, the Democrats really were divided on this. There were those who said, it's our moment of leverage. Sure, you're not eating. Sure, you don't have any food. Sure, your SNAP benefits aren't there. And yeah, we're not paying the federal workers, but it's our moment of leverage. And I think that really was the moment when Americans said, okay, now we understand what this is about. This is not about, you know, a real disagreement. This is about being against anything that Trump is for. So, but there really is this divide right now in the Democrat Party. You got your centrists, and you know, today's Democrat centrist is not something I would recommend. I would recognize as what we used to call a blue dog Democrat. But nonetheless, there are some centrists out there. And then there is this really, really progressive, socialistic, communistic movement within the Democrat Party right now. We see that with Mondami. We see it with AOC. We see it with Bernie Sanders, an avowed socialist. So there, I think at the end of the day, that the American people are smart enough to figure that out. Speaking, by the way, of communists in government, Trump says that Mondami wants to meet with him. We'll work something out, he said. He would like to come to Washington. We want to see everything work out well for New York. No date or time has been set for the meeting between Mondami and Trump. As you know, Mondami, I can't say his name, Mamdani, a socialist who will be sworn in on New Year's Day after his victory earlier this month, has struck a defiant tone against Trump. He told the president to, quote, turn up the volume on his victory speech, which was laden with criticism of Trump on election night. However, Mamdani has said he is willing to meet with the president mainly to discuss the issue of affordability. Well, you can't live in New York City. It's not affordable there. I mean, it's so expensive. I once was sitting in a studio in New York listening to Charles Gibson. Remember Charles Gibson used to be on ABC?
I remember him.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He was a really good guy. And so he was talking to my niece about his daughters coming to New York City and setting up an apartment and that kind of stuff. I couldn't believe how expensive it was for, I mean, basically an apartment that two people would share that you couldn't turn around in without stepping on something. I mean, it's shocking how expensive it was. And I'll never forget, him telling, I couldn't believe it, And here's a guy who made good change. Guy was host of Good Morning America at the time. And he was talking about how expensive it was for his daughters. And how do you get started? How do you survive in New York City if everything is that expensive?
And you can't live outside of either because the cost of traveling through a tunnel or over a bridge.
Yep, bridge and tunnel people,
Crazy expensive.
People in New York really look down at the bridge and tunnel. Oh, they're bridge and tunnel.
Yeah.
People who don't live in New York City. But I got to tell you, I don't know how you do it. I mean, I never really wanted to work in New York City. I mean, it was expensive enough to live in Montgomery County, Maryland. When I was working in D.C., I lived in suburban Maryland, and it was expensive. I got like a $30,000 raise when I left the state of Maryland.
Yes, I did too.
Because there's no income tax, state income tax in Tennessee or in Florida. I went first to Florida before I got to Tennessee. I got here as quick as I could.
We got here too, and it's amazing the different financial situation it puts you in to be in a better state.
Well, you're right about that, and housing was expensive there. I can only imagine. And you compare housing in Maryland to the New York.
Yeah,
outrageous.
Crazy.
It's just insane. It really is. 52 minutes past the hour now of 7 o'clock.
The House is taking up that vote, likely to release the FBI files on Jeffrey Epstein today. We've got more on that coming up here at 8 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Nashville's Morning News. I'm Brian Wilson in for Dan Mandis, who's a little under the weather this morning, talking about what's going on around you. Listen, if you want to know why you're having a hard time making ends meet, little things keep going up, and you don't think about them all the time. And if you own a home, if you're fortunate enough to be in a situation where you own your home, you get a lot of benefits out of that, including a nice tax deduction if you've got a nice loan going on it. But it is also expensive. Listen to this story that I found at Fox Business. Hidden cost of homeownership jump, tightening the squeeze on buyers. You're not going to believe this. Insurance premiums have surged 48% since 2020. That's a lot. While maintenance and property taxes add to financial burden. So listen to this. A new analysis from real estate marketplace Zillow and Thumbtack, an online marketplace for local services, found that insurance, maintenance, and property tax can cost the average homeowner about $16,000 a year. The biggest part of that is for maintenance costs on your home, about $11,000. About $2,000 goes toward homeowners insurance, and on average, $3,000 toward property taxes in November. Collectively, those housing costs jumped 4.7% in the past year. So everything is going up, and it's sort of behind, you just pay, I don't know how about you, but my mortgage comes out automatically right out of the bank. I don't look at it that closely. But when you start to figure out how much you're, putting in escrow and how much you're paying for insurance and how you're paying for all these other things and keeping the place up, you got to keep the place up if you're going to keep the value in the property, it can end up costing you a lot of money, $16,000. And about $11,000 of that is in maintenance. So that's perhaps why so many people have decided, I'll just rent for now. Because it's too expensive to own. I can't afford to keep the house up. It is 8 o'clock. We've 3 hours down, 1 hour to go of Nashville's Morning News. Back after the news with Joan Jones.
Good morning, now 8 o'clock, and I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. Well, the House is taking up that vote to likely release the FBI files on sex offender Jeffrey Epstein today. But already Democrats appear to be walking back their expectations. Here's ABC's Catherine Falders.
The House is going to vote for it. The Senate's going to vote for it. And Trump says he's going to sign it. But we really can't be so sure that all those documents are going to be released. And then if the Department of Justice, by the way, says that they're going to release all the documents, how do we know that that's the full trove of information? I think it's going to be hard to tell.
Now, Democrats have already released portions of emails sent by Epstein without identifying the recipients in some cases or the context. The acting FEMA administrator has now resigned after public criticism over his leadership during and after catastrophic floods in Texas over the summer.
Richardson did face some criticism from those both externally and internally at the department. Of course, he took over for Cameron Hamilton, the former acting FEMA administrator who was tapped by the Trump administration to dismantle the agency, as FEMA's Secretary Kristi Noem has said publicly that she wants to dismantle it. Hamilton kind of pushed back on that and was subsequently ousted from the role.
ABC's Luke Barr reporting there. Karen Evans, FEMA's chief of staff, is going to replace Richardson for now. Sumner County commissioners voted last night to provide extra money for the county's volunteer fire departments. News Channel 5's Patsy Montesinos.
For many, volunteering is about protecting their neighbors, but rising costs and inflation have made that harder. In some cases, prices for crucial gear have doubled. We've told you before how that's forced many of their volunteer departments to turn to GoFundMe just to keep operating.
Now, each fire department is getting $50,000 for a total of $650,000. The nation's airports are finally back to normal. And we're learning today that 1,400 Allegiant pilots are on strike today across the country, including here at BNA. The demonstration is part of a routine contract negotiations. And you may be finding that some websites are not working for you today. In fact, a lot of them are not working. Down Detector says it's not just X, but also Cloudflare, which is a web infrastructure company that's down, and it's affecting a host of other companies as well. Our super text line is down, so if you've been texting and we're not responding, that is why. Cloudflare says that they have observed a spike in unusual traffic on one of its servers early this morning. That caused the problems. Now they've got it identified, but they've got to work on it, which they are doing. They said all hands on deck right now. That's the latest news, traffic and weather next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News. Okay, so we are looking at problems this morning on I-440 eastbound. There's a crash just before I-65. That's exit 5, and the right exit lane has been blocked off by it. In Arrington on 840 eastbound before Horton Highway, a crash takes out the left lane there. And you've got a crash as well, a couple of them in one on Forest Hills on Old Hickory Boulevard west of Hillsborough Pike, another one in Hermitage on Old Hickory Boulevard southbound at I-40 East. Watch yourself as well if you're traveling this morning on 40 westbound. There's an accident in Lebanon past South Hartman Drive, and just one more in Rutterville, I-840 westbound before Arno Road, exit 37. Slow traffic, the left shoulder blocked off by a crash there. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Seven minutes past the hour of 8 o'clock, hour number 4 of the big show here at Nashville Morning News. Brian Wilson in for Dan Mandis, who called in sick today, and I had to scramble in this morning to, I got as I say, a late notice. Well, it was an early notice. I think an early notice is the better way to say it. when the phone rang at 12:50. But I'm glad to be here and good to catch up with all you good people out there. Joan Jones, are you there?
I am.
You know, you had a soundbite from a woman in your newscast.
Yeah.
And I wonder, could you pull that back up? I'm throwing you a curve here. I hope you haven't deleted the soundbite already.
No, which one is it?
It was the one where she was talking about the things that are going to happen with regard to the Jeffrey Epstein thing.
Yeah.
Play that. Who is it? And play that one more time.
It's ABC's Catherine Falders.
All right.
A reporter for ABC News. Here she is.
The House is going to vote for it. The Senate's going to vote for it. And Trump says he's going to sign it. But we really can't be so sure that all those documents are going to be released. And then if the Department of Justice, by the way, says that they're going to release all the documents, how do we know that that's the full trove of information? I think it's going to be hard to tell.
Well, and this is exactly what Trump was saying yesterday.
Yes.
Exactly what he was saying. You know, we could release it all, and they've already released 65,000 pages of Epstein documents. And if they say, okay, that's everything, is everybody going to believe that's everything?
It's never going to end.
It never ends.
No.
And, you know, he makes a very valid point that with the Epstein documents, just like it was with the JFK documents, with the UAPs, whatever you want to talk about, they say we released all the documents, but nobody believes them. So how can you win in a situation like this?
You can't.
No. Look, what I caught in that and what caught my ear in all that is that Democrats are making these arguments now because they realize there's no there there. They knew it all along. They've been scrutinizing these documents. They've gone through the 65,000 pages of documents. There are people up on the Hill who know what the Department of Justice has. And do you think that if there was a screaming, smoking gun document that implicated Donald Trump in some way, that wouldn't have been leaked by now? Of course it would have been leaked by now. And the bottom line is it hasn't. And in fact, you've got Epstein saying he didn't do anything wrong. You've got Virginia Joffrey saying he didn't do anything wrong. I never saw him do anything inappropriate. A lot of people, and Ghislaine Maxwell has said, he, as far as I know, he never acted inappropriately with anyone. At some point, you have to take that as the answer. I think the Democrats are now backing away from that because there was nothing to it. They were just making noise to make people think, he's hiding stuff from you. Donald Trump doesn't want you to see these documents.
So right now, at this very moment, on the Capitol Hill steps, there are lawmakers gathered. Marjorie Taylor Greene is speaking right now. I can tap into that if you'd like.
Yeah, let's listen a little bit of that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hell has froze over. I want to speak goodness and love and hope into the women standing behind me and all of the other survivors whose names you don't even know, but stand with these women. They are survivors, and they are strong, and they are courageous, and they are daughters of God. They are not victims. These women have fought the most horrific fight that no woman should have to fight, and they did it by banding together and never giving up. And that's what we did by fighting so hard against the most powerful people in the world, even the President of the United States, in order to make this vote happen today. I was called a traitor by a man that I fought for 6 years for. And I gave him my loyalty for free. I won my first election without his endorsement, beating 8 men in a primary. And I've never owed him anything, but I fought for him for the policies and for America first. And he called me a traitor for standing with these women and refusing to take my name off the discharge petition. Let me tell you what a traitor is. A traitor is an American that serves foreign countries and themselves. A patriot is an American that serves the United States of America and Americans like the women standing behind me. And I want to tell you that this only became possible today because the American people, whom we serve as representatives here in Congress, demanded that this vote happen, and they put more pressure on every single elected.
Now, her speech here before the cameras comes after Thomas Massie was also speaking to the crowd earlier. So apparently at this point, after this is over, they'll walk into the House and that vote will take place. And they're expecting that the majority of Republicans will also vote in favor of this.
Listen, I'm all for having this stuff come out. I'm all for having it come out. I don't have any problem with it coming out because I don't think that Donald Trump has any exposure. And if he is, they'll try to twist it. It's not going to be much. It's going to be, yeah, I knew him. We had a falling out. He's in the name. His name will pop up in a document,
and you can tell.
But does that, just because somebody's name is in a document, does that mean they did anything wrong? And nothing suggests that Trump has acted inappropriately.
And that's why they've released these partial emails, out of context emails. The recipients or the sender that mentions Donald Trump's name is not given. That's why you and I have been led to this ultimate decision that it can't contain anything horrible. They would have already released it.
It would have. Trust me. I know how this town works. If there's a hot document, even if it's classified, it will leak. It will leak. And no matter what you say, if there was something out there, we would have heard it about Trump by now. Trust me. There's nothing in these documents, except his name may be mentioned, but nothing that would be untoward, inappropriate. I just don't think it's there. If it is, I'll be the first to admit that I was wrong. But I just don't think it's there because my experience in Washington teaches me that if it were there, we would already know about it. Trust me. This is the Russia thing all over again.
Yeah, that's what President Trump said last night, right?
Say again?
That's what President Trump said last night.
Yeah, it is. It really is. It's like, make the innuendo, get everybody all stirred up. He's hiding stuff from you. And then when you get all of the information out there, you find out, well, that's not true at all. It wasn't Russian collusion. It was the Democrats who were colluding. So, they will accuse you of the things that they have done. That's what Democrats will do. So I just don't think there's much there. I could be wrong. I'll be happy to amend my statement and tell you I was wrong if I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. And I think at the end of the day, Donald Trump's name will be mentioned only in a cursory way in these documents. But it really comes back to that last thing. And I want to talk about this after we do a quick break for traffic and weather. I want to talk about how, Americans just don't trust their government on any level. And that makes it impossible to move forward on some of these things. Talk about that in just a moment, 15 past the hour. Looking for a high today in the low 70s and maybe some rain, 70% chance of rain this afternoon. It could be, some of it in some areas might be isolated and severe. So keep an eye on the sky about the time you're headed home this afternoon from work. Talking about this Epstein thing, it's going to come out. The documents are going to be released, although I think that legitimately, I don't know if the Justice Department can release documents that come from the grand jury. And the grand jury documents, that's not the way you should. I mean, the reason you do a grand jury, keep those documents sealed, is that a lot of things that said in a grand jury room in trial turn out to not to be true. That's why you have a trial. People come in and make all kinds of allegations before a grand jury. And as they say, a good district attorney or a good prosecutor can get a grand jury to indict a ham sandwich. So, I don't understand. But at the end of the day, Trump is correct about one thing. You can release everything that's out there, every single file. And the American people would still not believe that they have all of the information. Well, I didn't hear what I thought was in those documents, so they're still hiding stuff from me. That's just the way we are. Just, look at all the documents. He talked about how the documents that came from the JFK investigation, the assassination, how those documents have all essentially been released. And people still don't believe they have the entire story. This is what's going on right now with the UAP thing, the unidentified aerial phenomenon. We're gonna. There's gonna be a big movie that comes out. I think it's on the 23rd. A movie comes out called Age of Disclosure. And it's talking about how, we are seeing things, in the skies. We don't know what they are. They don't seem to be our technology. They don't seem to be Russian technology. They don't seem to be Chinese technology. This is stuff way above anything that we have on this planet. The technology is almost unrecognizable. It's so advanced. And we have evidence of these things entering our airspace with impunity. I mean, there's just no doubt this happens. And we've been told, well, the government's releasing all the information. Will they ever release all the information? If they released every single thing about UAPs, there would still be a lot of people that think, well, they didn't give us all of it. Because you don't trust your government to tell you the truth. And with good reason. I'm not saying that we should. We should always be skeptical of our government. The government will always try to preserve the government. But the bottom line is, if there are secrets out there and they say they're going to give you this information and they're finally going to release it, it's finally going to come public, and maybe soon we'll know the truth about what these things are. But the bottom line is if the government gave up every single UFO document that had ever been filed in some back, storeroom dating back to the Roswell incident and before, I guarantee you there would be a lot of people who say, well, they didn't give us all of it. They're still hiding stuff from us. And they might be. I don't know. But the bottom line is we don't trust our government to tell us the truth. And we are immensely skeptical when they say, we gave you everything. Well, how do we know you gave us everything? You have to take their word for it. Or disprove it in some other way. So I just think this is, it's a no-win situation. No matter how many documents are released, a great number of people are going to believe till they go to their grave that they didn't get the entire story. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. I think we need to be skeptical of our government, but that the same way, how do you ever prove to somebody you really have all the documents? I think the documents are going to be really, really painful for Democrats. And I think they know that. And I think they're pulling back now. And I think they're trying to say, well, Trump can tell you he's going to release all the documents. Will he really release all the documents? That's what they're saying now. And that feeds right into the suspicion that Americans have about their government, that they don't tell us the truth all the time. Maybe not much of the time. Hard to know. So I think it's going to be worth watching to see how this all unfolds. But I'm not. If you're waking up this morning and you're saying, the Epstein files are going to come out, this is going to hurt Trump, I just don't think it will. He'll be mentioned in a cursory way, and that'll be it. That will be it. 21 minutes now past the hour of 8 o'clock on Super Talk.
Coming up, looks like some of the websites around the country, around the world, are starting to operate again. There was a cloud flare down this morning, and it's taken down a number of websites around the world. So it looks like it's starting to slowly get back. We'll check in and see what the progress is on that coming up here at 8:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Let's call it 28 minutes now past the hour of 8 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in for Dan Mandis on Nashville's Morning News. He'll be back, we expect, tomorrow, but if he's not, I'll fill in again. That's the way it goes. We've been a lot of people having problems with different websites. As you heard Joan Jones talk about it in the news a few moments ago. And I'm experiencing that right now. I went to check Bongino.com, which is a place I go because it's a good place to find a compendium of what I think are pretty good and fairly responsible stories about what's going on in the world around you. And when I hit it, I get a screen that says my browser is working and BonginoReport.com is working, but there's an error with something called Cloudflare, which apparently is is the server that they use. Their server system is down. Internal server error code 500, whatever that means. So there you have it. It is impacting. Is Drudge back up? And not Drudge, but what's the other one? Oh yeah, X is that? Yeah, I don't know if
X is back up. I just checked.
Yeah, Bongino.com is not. BonginoReport.com is not. But I guess they're coming back online. But what a mess that is. There's nothing like.
And it's worldwide. It's not like a couple of people. It's worldwide.
And is it something? Is it malicious, or is it? I mean, it seems like they're sort of open. Not really saying it's suspicious, but there was some unusual traffic.
Right, a spike in unusual traffic to one of its servers. So it sounds intentional to me.
That sounds like a denial of service kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
maybe it is. I hope that they get it resolved. I hope it doesn't spread. They're getting better at this kind of stuff. There are really, honestly, really bad actors out there on the internet. I'm getting to the point now where I'm so frustrated with the internet experience. I really am. You look at social media and you look at a lot of these websites. And, with AI, the advent of AI, it's just hard to know what's real anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm struggling with that. I know I have a pretty good, as I like to say, a pretty good detector when it comes to that kind of stuff. I have a pretty good sense of, well, this doesn't ring true. This doesn't sound right. I'd be cautious about that. And my instinct on that are pretty good, but I did this for a living for a lot of years. And little things that, jump out at me, like that wasn't sourced. And that should not be, the only sound bites, the only quotes that I see in a particular story come from people who don't want to put their name on it. You become a little suspicious. You wonder, am I being played? Is this true? Is it accurate? It's really hard. And when AI now, nothing you look at, you can look at anything and there's a good chance it's just made up, just completely made up. And so, the experience is bad, and then you have things like this that happen as people are apparently out there trying to stir things up. Oh, well, we've got about another half hour to go. Chris Hand will not be joining us in the next half hour because he's been, like a lot of you out there, been stuck in traffic just getting to work, needs to get ready for his show. So we're going to do a break for the news and come back and wrap this sucker up. 8:31 on Super Talk 99.7.
And if you... Injured? Weird.
Good morning. It is now 8:31, and I'm Joan Jones with your top stories. A Davidson County Court has put a temporary hold on Governor Bill Lee's authority to deploy the National Guard in Memphis. Here's Memphis reporter Joyce Peterson on Action News 5.
The judge is ruling on the lawsuit that Shelby County Mayor Lee Harris and other Democratic leaders filed to stop the deployment of the troops, saying it's illegal. Mayor Harris contends Governor Bill Lee cannot deploy the Tennessee National Guard for civil unrest unless there is a rebellion or invasion. The ruling comes just days after the Guard doubled the amount of troops in the Bluff City.
Now, Governor Lee has 5 days to appeal this ruling. His office has not responded to the judge's ruling just yet. The ruling, though, is limited to the National Guard, so it doesn't affect the Memphis Safe Task Force. That'll continue to operate without the support of the National Guard for now. In Broadview, Illinois, just outside of Chicago, the mayor there has declared a civil emergency. We've seen violent protests over immigration raids at the ICE processing facility there.
Mayor Katrina Thompson declaring a civil emergency here in Broadview because of a series of recent threats. Mayor Thompson, in a statement citing a death threat made against her on October 13th, which was reported to the FBI, and a telephoned bomb threat made against Village Hall as the village has faced criticism for restricting protest hours around the Broadview Ice Processing Center.
That's ABC's Eric Horng. Last Friday, outside of that facility, more than 20 people were arrested and 4 officers were injured. The mayor of Raleigh, North Carolina, announcing Border Patrol agents will be continuing operations in that area today after federal agents fanned out across nearby Charlotte over the weekend, detaining more than 130 people within 48 hours. The Raleigh mayor, Janet Cowell, releasing a statement last night. She said that the federal action there was not requested by her city. We're learning that some websites are back up and running now. Cloudflare hit by an outage overnight. It knocked out major websites offline for users around the world. X appears to be back, but there are others that are still out this morning, including Spectrum. Market numbers brought to you by Beacon Capital Management online at beaconcm.com. So we're starting off trading on a sad note today. The Dow Jones Industrials are down 348. We've got the NASDAQ dropping 85 at the start here, and the S&P 500 index is down 18. That's the latest news, traffic, and weather next. I'm Joan Jones, WTN News. Looking at a crash on 840 eastbound in Arrington right now. It's before Horton Highway. Been there for a while. Right at exit 37, the left lane blocked off by it. I-440 eastbound before I-65. You've got a crash that takes out the right exit lane. Old Hickory Boulevard in Forest Hills, west of Hillsborough Pike. That's the scene of a crash. 24 westbound in Smyrna. This is just past Almaville Road, exit 70. Watch for a crash in that spot, too. Very slow at the curve from 65 into 24 this morning, heading in from the north. And it is jammed on 65, heading northbound all the way from Spring Hill up into Nashville. Traffic every 10 minutes every morning on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hey, it's 39 minutes past the hour of 8 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 this Tuesday, November 18th. Brian Wilson in for Dan Mandis, under the weather. Hopefully back tomorrow. Everything going well for you today. Up on Capitol Hill today. In the next few minutes, you're going to hear a lot of debate about Epstein, and the House will pass a bill, apparently, that will, require the Department of Justice to release all the Epstein documents. Of course, nobody's going to believe they've all been released, but they're going to do that anyway. It goes to the Senate, and I think the Senate will do it. If it ends up on the president's desk, he says he'll sign it. He's got nothing to hide. So that's the big story today. A lot of other things going on. I want to talk locally about Williamson County and their schools. I found this story not in any of the local TV websites, not on the Tennessean. It wasn't in any of those places. It was in the Federalist. Should be a local story of interest. Has to do with Emily Orbison, who apparently is the granddaughter of Roy Orbison, Pretty Woman fame. From Wink, Texas, by the way, my part of the world. She is a teacher, and they suspended her without pay in September after she said what I think were, my personal opinion, some rather reprehensible things. You be the judge. I'll report, you decide. On the day that Charlie Kirk was murdered, she quoted him talking about the Second Amendment. Now, there's no doubt that Charlie Kirk was a strong supporter of the Second Amendment. And Charlie Kirk said this: "It's worth to have, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so we can have the Second Amendment to protect other God-given rights. That's prudent. That's a prudent deal. That's rational." That's what Charlie Kirk said. Now, you may agree or disagree with that statement, but it was made talking about his strong defense of the Second Amendment. Well, she wrote on social media, "Don't mourn his death. It's just the price of doing business. Completely rational." She posted those comments following Kirk's assassination while he was speaking to thousands of students at school in Utah. The post outraged members of the community, including Williamson County School Board members. Here's what one said: "Let me be clear, this matter will be taken seriously and addressed promptly. Our students, our family, our community deserve respect and professionalism from those entrusted to teach." Williamson County School Board member Claire Reeves said. The district subsequently suspended Orbison, and now they have reinstated her with full back pay. Is that what, if you have a kid in Williamson County schools, are you okay with that? Are you all right with that? I'm not really okay with it. I don't think that's, first of all, did she make it in social media? Yes. Does she have the right to say anything she want to say? Absolutely. You have the right to say whatever you want to say. You can say things that are popular. You can say things that are unpopular. You can say things that are ugly. If you say things that are defamatory, you may find yourself in a court of law. But one way or the other, that's because free speech is not free from consequences. And especially in the workplace, if you have a position of public responsibility, like a teacher does, and you say something outrageous, it raises question about your judgment. And we want people who have good judgment to be teaching our kids. What it really tells you, I think, is that I think in many schools today, there is still an agenda. They're going to talk about this stuff. If she said this on social media, do you think it's possible? Is it possible she might have said it in a classroom? I don't know. I just don't know. It's a question I would ask. I would talk to her students. I'd try to find out. One way or the other, I think the Williamson County School District did the right thing by putting her on suspension, but now they've undone it all. She filed a lawsuit, and they probably just don't want to have the hassle of a lawsuit, and that's probably what it's all about. But, you know, honestly, I think a message needs to be sent to our educators that they should do this little thing in the education process known as educating kids. If you're an educator, just educate about math and science and reading and writing and all of the history, government. You know, I really was not a great student in high school, not at all. I sort of was pretty bored with what happened in school, and I wasn't the greatest student. But you know what? I had one really good teacher who taught history and government. And that teacher, we talked about the events of the day, and we're talking, this is, you know, in the era of Watergate. We were talking about things going on every day, the Watergate hearings and all that kind of stuff. That's when I was in high school. And what at the end of the classes that I had with this one teacher, her name was Mrs. Hirsch. She was such a good teacher, so interesting. I learned so much. In fact, everything I know about government and covering government and history that served me well in my career from the time I left high school to the time I went to Washington, D.C. was 12 years. And I got to Washington, D.C. and worked at the network level on a high school education, basically, and Mrs. Hirsch's government class. I covered government based on the knowledge I learned in high school. She was that good a teacher, really good, and inspired me to, you know, to learn all about it. But the bottom line is, at the end of all of the discussions we had at the end of the year, if you had asked me, is Mrs. Hirsch a Republican or is she a Democrat? I couldn't have told you. I wouldn't have known. I couldn't have even ventured a guess because she never said anything that expressed a personal opinion. Boy, wouldn't it be nice to have that today? I think the left really made some inroads with one generation of young people. I think the current generation of young people have figured out what was going on. And they're not biting, but for a long time, the teachers were able to indoctrinate freely in class, and little was said about it. Now, I'm not saying this teacher did that. I don't know because I wasn't there. I don't know what she did in class. I simply don't know. She may be, completely, agnostic in class and not talk about those kind of things, which is what she should do. But one way or the other, I think it really got to be a problem. And I would like for people in education to know, yes, you have free speech rights, but speech may be free, but it's not free from consequence if you say outrageous things. I mean, I'm telling you, when you do talk radio, you are one bad, ill-conceived thought away from losing your career. You have to think about the things that you say. You have to make sure that you're saying things that are responsible. And, if you don't, you can find yourself without a job in a pretty quick hurry. I think we ought to just focus on the things that are important in the educational environment, the reading, the writing. Just unbelievable stuff. We had another story about what's going on in Michigan, and this is pretty interesting. This is a conversation between a deputy superintendent of schools for the state of Michigan and a state legislature who's a Republican, and he's asking about gender.
There's lots of things in this proposed guidelines that do not line up with the beliefs of parents. They do not believe it is the role of the government, which, by the way, you are, to dictate these kinds of things. Things like you said, the science of gender. How many genders are there?
Long pause.
How many genders are there?
Different people have different beliefs on that.
Well, you can believe all you want, but science says there's 2. So why is it that we believe we have to put this indoctrination into our you can believe whatever you want, and that's perfectly okay. And any parent can believe whatever they want, and that's perfectly okay. And any politician can believe whatever they want, and that's perfectly okay. But why are we putting it in the curriculum to educate our children about that? What's the reason behind that?
Another long pause.
The reason behind it is that we find that children who are gender diverse are being harassed, bullied in school. We can't make education gains if students feel unsafe.
Well, no, you should. You should make sure that kids are safe. That, in fact, the legislator asking the question here is in agreement.
Wouldn't disagree with you on that. Completely agree that we have to keep our children safe.
Well, I mean, of course you do.
But are you saying that by you providing this education on gender fluidity or multiple gender theory, are you saying that what that will do is it will stop those kinds of behaviors in school?
Of course it won't.
The standards point to understanding tolerance, inclusivity, and based on what we know from Massachusetts, it has made a difference.
Well, there you go. You look at Massachusetts, you say, well, there's my guidepost. This is what they think in Massachusetts, so therefore we must believe this in Michigan. Well, it's Michigan. You know, Bill Maher, who's, sort of pretty left-leaning, has gone as far as to say recently he thinks that Democrats just went too far on this gender stuff. You want to know why you lost the last election? You talk to Michelle Obama. She thinks it's because we're not ready to have a woman as president.
Well, as we saw in this past election, sadly, we ain't ready.
For a woman.
That's why I'm like, don't even look at me about running, because you all are lying. You're not ready for a woman. You are not. So don't waste my time. We got a lot of growing up to do. And there's still, sadly, a lot of men who do not feel like they can be led by a woman, and we saw it. What was the question?
I mean, first of all, she seems to suggest that I guess Hillary Clinton and now Kamala Harris did not win their presidential elections because we're somehow against women, that we're not ready for a female president. You know what? All across this country, there are women in positions of authority. I mean, some of my best bosses, in fact, I would say some of my very best bosses in the course of my career have been women. I don't have any problem with it. I don't think most Americans have any problem. We don't have a problem with a black person being president. Witness Barack Obama. We in America, we want to hire people who we feel will do good work. And also they have to be, and this is where I think, Michelle Obama and Hillary Clinton sort of fell short. You have to be likable. Neither of them. Hillary Clinton was the worst retail politician, incredibly bitter woman, and she insulted half of America. Remember, basket of deplorables? She's just not a very nice human being. And with Kamala, I think most people looked at her and thought she was vapid, that there was no there. And that she, that's why she wasn't voted president. That and the fact that she came from an administration that basically put this country right in the dirt. But she meant, they seem to believe that they don't have a very high opinion of Americans. Well, we're not ready for a female president. I think we are. If a good one comes along, so far Democrats have not put forth a good one. They've put together Hillary Clinton, the worst retail politician in the history of politics, bitter, ugly, nasty attitude about everything. And then you got Kamala Harris, just not very bright, came from an administration that was a complete failure. People were ready for a change. You know, if you want to get a woman elected, and I'm fine. If a woman wants to get nominated and runs and puts together a good candidacy, I'll vote for her. I got nothing against women. I just don't have a lot of faith in those two particular women. But maybe that's just me. Hey, it's 55 minutes past the hour of 8 o'clock now on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.